Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the quarterly en banc between the Board of County Commissioners and the Wichita City Council. We're glad everyone's here today. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mayor Wu, thank you for joining us today. I'll yield the floor to you to do your introductions.
Thank you very much, Chairman Blubaugh and Pro Tem Wise. Thank you for hosting the first en banc of the year here at the Sedgwick County offices. I would allow all our council members to introduce themselves because we don't have as formal of an introduction. I'll start with council member for District 1.
Good morning, Joseph Shepard, Wichita City Council member for Wichita District 1.
Good morning, I'm Becky Tuttle, representing District 2.
Mike Hoheisel, District 3.
David Johnson, District 5.
Maggie Ballard, District 6.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lily Wu, alongside City Manager Dennis Marstall, here from the city side, as well as several of our City of Wichita department leaders. So thank you all very much for having, again, the first en banc of the year.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mayor. And we have a little more formal process over here. So, Madam Clerk, if you could please call our roll to order.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Present.
Commissioner Beatty. Commissioner Howe.
Present.
Commissioner Wise.
Present.
Chairman Blubaugh.
Present. And we are joined with County Manager Tom Stoltz and several staff members, as well as I believe there's other electeds in the audience. So appreciate everybody being here this morning. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first item?
New business, item A, law enforcement hangar proposal.
Presenting this morning will be Sheriff Jeff Easter. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Joining me today will be Chief Sullivan from the Wichita Police Department and Colonel Eric Smith from the KHP. So we appreciate you allowing us to talk about this. Chief, do you want to start us off with this?
No, I'm the follow you. Okay, speed up.
So we're approached by Kansas Highway Patrol about a possible project of having a hangar proposal at Jabara Airport here several months ago. These are the two aircraft that are housed here in Wichita that fly missions every day in the Wichita-Sedgwick County area. From a statistical standpoint, KHP has flown 306 flight missions in 2025 that services here in Sedgwick County. As a whole, for the entire state, they have flown 1,438 flight hours, which means 23% of their flight hours are for here in the Wichita area. Some of the other statistical information, as you can see broken down on this slide, is the different departments that they have serviced here on different calls within Sedgwick County. As you can see, for the Wichita Police Department is 176 calls, Kansas Highway Patrol is 102, and for the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office is 64. So those are the three highest agencies that the KHP services here with their aircraft. Some further information, statistical information, of those 326 or 328 flight hours, the Cessna 206 Station Air cost them about $400 per hour, 150 flight hours, so they spent about $60,000 in 2025. The Cessna 208 Caravan is about $1,000 per hour. They flew it 56 flight hours. The cost was $56,000. The Airbus helicopter, which has flown 1,200 hours or is $1,200 per hour, has flown 120 hours in the Sedgwick County area, was $145,000 for a total of $262,000 that the KHP has spent in the Sedgwick County area with these air platforms here. The next slide, we have a plane as well for all of our inmate pickups that we have to do throughout the United States. So we currently spend about $30,000 a year to rent space at Jabara. KHP, as part of what we're going to discuss today, has offered the services of their mechanic to service our aircraft for no charge on labor. We currently contract with Clemens for our King Air 350. In 2024, we spent $51,000, almost $52,000 simply on labor. That does not include parts. In 2025, we spent 112,000 or almost 113,000 on labor. And in 2026, thus far, we've spent a little over $3,000. And so part of our commitment and the police department's commitment to the KHP, they asked us for a task force officer so that that helicopter could be up flying more, because currently they have a couple pilots. Both of them would have to be in there running or flying the helicopter and then running all the equipment in there. So between us and the Wichita Police Department, we have a TFO that's assigned to them. So they're up more because of our personnel running the ancillary equipment. When it comes to the hangar proposal, as you can see on here, what the square footage would be. The KHP portion is 78%. Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office is 22%, because we would house our aircraft in amongst the KHP aircraft. The total is about $8.4 million to build that particular hangar. And then I'll turn over to Lindsay on some of the other figures that she's come up with.
Morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners and Council. I'm Lindsay Poe-Rousseau. I am the CFO for Sedgwick County. So as the sheriff has mentioned, where's your click? There we go. Yep. We have a number of variables that go into the concept of constructing a hangar. And so what you see on this slide basically takes the dollar figure that you heard from the sheriff on the prior slide to construct that hangar. The idea is that that would be constructed at Jabara Airport through a ground lease with the Wichita Airport Authority. So many discussions have already occurred in line with that. So if you'll bear with me, I'll walk through what each of these categories represents. I'm going to call your attention especially to the annual debt service, because there will be 3 slides that we look at. That will be the only variable that changes between the 3 slides. So what this anticipates is that Sedgwick County would be the owner of this property and therefore would construct the hangar. This is the cost of that hangar, along with, for now, about $400,000 in anticipated additional costs for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Now, I will say the Highway Patrol has come to the table and said that potentially there would be some ability to use operating budget to offset some of that $400,000, but we are still far too early in the analysis to know that. But just be aware that that's a part of it. This assumes that we would bond the cost of that hangar over 20 years. Now, we will get to House Bill 2745 in a little bit and its impact on bonding. And so just to know that that heavy cloud hangs over this conversation. But essentially, we would bond that over 20 years. And at least for now, the county has a AAA credit rating. And so we're going to have a bond sale actually next week. And we had planned to do a 5.25% interest rate to go along with that AAA. So that's what all of these assumptions are based on. Obviously, there's some volatility there. So what you'll see is based on the breakout that the sheriff mentioned about the percentage split between the Kansas Highway Patrol and the sheriff's use of the space, you can see how these dollars are reflected for both the sheriff and the Kansas Highway Patrol, so that you can see there's about $730,000 in annual debt service cost to pay this facility off over 20 years. Now, we also, because no one can own property at the airport, we need a ground lease with the Wichita Airport Authority, and they have come to the table and have given essentially a half price lease for what that is. And so you'll see that for now, again, based on that pro rata split, it's about $22,600. Now, unlike the bond, that's over 20 years, this would be 50 years. And so potentially at the end of the 50 years, the ground and the facility could revert to Wichita Airport Authority, or we could be in a position to negotiate a longer term lease closer to that 50 years, when I assume none of us in this room will care anymore. So then we also worked with our insurance broker, IMA, to understand what the cost just for the facility itself would be to insure. And so again, you can see that that's about $15,000 on an annual basis. And then operating costs. So we are very grateful to the Highway Patrol for providing us a per square foot figure from their Topeka hangar So obviously this is a very loose estimate because obviously the hangar space relative to office space could be slightly off, but this is a good faith assumption of what those operating costs could include per year. So overall, you can see that based on just constructing the hangar, we would expect to spend about $839,000 per year. But it's really important from the Sedgwick County perspective. Again, the sheriff mentioned he spends $30,000 a year to have a lease at Jabbar. Now, that is not designated hangar space. That's basically wherever they go. So we already have $30,000 in the budget for that. He also mentioned that KHP has offered to allow their maintenance staff to do the labor work on our airplane, which of course was the KHP airplane before. And so what you can see from the Sedgwick County perspective is a cost offset because of that labor. Now that cost doesn't match what you saw in the prior slides. That's the average of 2 full years worth of data. I'm a data nerd. That's what you're going to get from me. Sorry. So what you can see then is this means that the total additional cost to the county of $102,000 is greater than the $30,000 that is currently in the sheriff's budget. Now, additionally, I want to say thank you to the Wichita Airport Authority because they have already taken steps to submit grant requests for the site work and utilities. That total is about $2.6 million, but the Wichita Airport Authority has already submitted grant requests for up to $1.5 million. Now, some or all of that could be given. This slide right here assumes that we would get the full grant amount of 1.5 million. I am thinking that's a bit optimistic. So because I'm a pessimist, here's what I think we ought to maybe hope for, and that is about half of the amount, $750,000. So again, none of the other variables change, but you can see that that debt service figure is reduced. And this now brings the impact to the county to about $88,500 versus the $30,000 in the budget. And one thing I did fail to mention that is also very important is that KHP, as far as I know, unless the legislature did something Yankee, has $650,000 in legislation that was actually passed last year that bakes that $650,000 into the cost specifically for a lease for this hangar at Jabard. And nothing has changed with that. Okay, fantastic. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the fiscal side. Sorry to spend so much time explaining it to you, but that's where we are.
Does anybody have any questions specifically about the fiscal side of it? Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
So with that, I will also tell you, the air section here is very instrumental in what we do to have aerial platforms available for us for disturbances, in progress calls, so your robberies, your shootings, those type of things, the car chases, it allows us to back off the car chases, KHP can follow, and many other things that they do on a daily basis. So with that, Chief, do you have any comments?
Morning, Chief.
Good morning. No, just very briefly, I'm just going to reinforce what the sheriff said. Right after Eric was appointed, we had a conversation. I was traveling through an airport and he expressed his desire to supplement additional resources down here. I told him about my concerns, my problems. So he made the invitation for us to provide him with a tactical flight officer. And he made Jeff the same invitation. So the figures that you see today in terms of hours in the air will increase exponentially as those two tactical flight officers complete their training in the next couple of weeks. I can't tell you how instrumental Law 1 and Law 7 are. Moving them closer to Wichita would be a great advantage to the city. As many times we call them in the middle of the night, when they're home and in bed, and they're coming from home and getting up in the air. Their top flight assets we have here, the A-Star helicopter is the gold standard. I bought 2 in Philadelphia. Their capabilities are perfect for what we need. Just the other night, we had 4 juveniles, ages of 14 to 15, in a stolen car that just were involved in a burglary. And we had 3 or 4 separate pursuits because every time they took off, we backed off. Law 1 took over. We'd catch a couple more. They would take off. And they even caught one of the juveniles throwing a gun under the car, which we never would have seen. So we have a state-of-the-art drone program, but drone does not replace helicopters in a situation like this. This is a gap in capability. So it directly contributes to the safety of the city of Wichita in a huge way. And they are with us in every operation. They're a big part of the success of the Property Crimes Task Force. And as some of you know, we're involved in an initiative right now, and they are up there every night for us, keeping our officers safe. That's another big part of it, because any officer will tell you that sometimes they find themselves alone, but knowing that helicopter is overhead is huge. So I would really recommend strongly that we move forward with this deal. It will benefit the city of Wichita greatly in terms of public safety.
Commissioner Bailey, you got a question?
I do, yeah. Thanks, Gilman. Appreciate the presentation. I'm convinced of the public safety impact through a few presentations. I think you've made your case, and also watching the data of what's happening throughout the city and the county throughout the night, and understanding how often the KHP fleet is in the air. I'm convinced of it. I think I understand, Colonel, maybe help me. The legislature is not allowing KHP to build their own hangar, correct? They're requiring a lease relationship. Do I understand that correctly?
Commissioner Eric Smith, Superintendent of the Highway Patrol, you are correct. Our original ask to the legislature 2 sessions ago was for bonding authority. For whatever reason, the Appropriations Committee and the appropriators elected to authorize a lease, and they funded that lease at $650,000 per year, requiring us to seek a developer.
So this is the mechanism for the hangar, is you need to enter into it for a lease. If KHP can't build their own hangar, you're dependent upon the county or the city or some other entity to do this and to lease it to you, correct?
That's correct, or a private developer. And that's really, I think, one of the key things about the origin of this partnership, in that we did initially explore a private developer to build this for us and to lease from them. The dollars and cents didn't make sense. And we even had some pushback from the legislature in the sense that in an ensuing session, they could have refigured that deal if we didn't find a public partnership for that.
Last question. Are we at risk of losing the KHP plane and the fleet if we don't move forward with this? Is there an opportunity that KHP relocates somewhere else throughout the state? Or are you committed to being here, whether this happens or not?
I'm not going to blow any smoke and act as if we're going to take our toys and go somewhere else. We are committed to Wichita. I think the legislature made sure of that when they specified that the last aircraft purchase, which was the helicopter, the Airbus, be stationed here in Wichita. So we will be here. The issue really becomes how much can we afford to operate that helicopter if we have to go this alone? And if we have to do this alone, we're going to have to take cost saving measures in the construction of that hangar, which will take dollars and cents out of the operating account. We will be in the air far less than we are now, which will have an impact, a negative impact on public safety.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions. If we did this, is the response time faster? You mentioned they have to come from home, but I assume that that's still going to be the same. The pilots that dispatch on a call are going to come from home regardless. So I guess the dispatch time would be very similar, I would assume.
You're correct. If the pilots are responding from home in a call out scenario, yeah, the response time to the hangar would be about the same. I will caveat that by saying, however, the partnership that the sheriff and the chief mentioned, by supplying a tactical flight officer, we have 2 standard crew. When they're up by themselves, they're limited to their flight hours. When they can split that crew and go up with 1 pilot and a tactical flight officer, either from the city or the county, we now have 2 crews and we can extend our operating hours. So the chances that we will already be at the hangar because of that partnership are greater.
A couple other quick questions here. I'm just trying to understand, again, on this estimate that Lindsay presented talks about the ground lease from Wichita Airport Authority. What I'm wondering is, this is government versus government versus government. Is there any way they can just abate that in some ways? We don't actually have to have tax dollars flowing between government units. Is there a way to not have to pay money for a government building on a government piece of property?
I'm probably not the best person to answer that question.
Question for Jesse.
Morning, Jesse. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It was a long walk for a short answer. No. So we can't give away land for free. We have federal regulations that require us to make sure we have fair market values.
I guess I don't view this as giving away land. I mean, this is government controlled property, but it's not giving it away. It's giving it to a specific use. In fact, in this case, a partnership with the state of Kansas. And so I guess I just surprised there's not a way to work that out, but.
I understand your point of view. It's just we're restricted by what we have for our regulations, but we are offering a steep discount off that land rate.
I guess two more quick ones. I know that Wichita used to operate a helicopter a long time ago, and they haven't had their own. And I guess our sheriff's asset is two planes. It looks like we have one plane. We only have one plane. Our King Air is our only plane. The sheriff operates the smaller plane and the helicopter. Not the sheriff. The highway patrol has the pictures we saw. Those are both highway patrol planes or aircraft.
That's correct. The King Air that's operated by the county is for fugitive extradition operations. The two that are here operated by the Highway Patrol are specific for law enforcement missions based on the equipment inside of them.
So I guess what I'm saying is the Highway Patrol has a reason to scramble to a situation, but we don't use our aircraft that way. Ours is primarily transferring prisoners in and out of the state or whatever. So the scramble, the desire to scramble quickly is really more of a Highway Patrol need than a sheriff's need, but.
Generally, however, as I think you saw from the usage statistics, the Highway Patrol scrambling is often in response to a city of Wichita or a Sedgwick County 911 call.
I guess what I'm getting to, I guess I make one point, I guess another comment with the question. I guess WPD did have a helicopter at one point, and now we in Sedgwick County and the city of Wichita are leaning on the Highway Patrol for that air support via helicopter. That's happening through you guys. And again, I think that's why we're here today is a partnership between the county and the state for this land. What I'm wondering is, I don't really like the idea of leasing a county-owned building on land we have no control over long term. I mean, this is not our land. We're going to construct a $8 million building on land that's not our land. It reminds me of Exploration Place a little bit. I would prefer to build this on land that we own. I guess I'm wondering is, the airport's one great idea, but wondering is there any way to solve that problem so that it is owned, the land is owned by the same governing body that owns the building itself. And I'm also wondering why Wichita doesn't, consider putting a helicopter in there so they have their own support. They ought to be a partner on this. Because right now there's no money to Wichita on this at all that I've seen. But they're also the biggest benefactor of having the helicopter. So I'm just wondering why is this the right plan?
Well, a couple of complex questions. The first one as to how come or could we build on land that's not owned by the airport authority? I'm not aware of any either privately or non-airport authority owned land that's adjacent to an airport that's capable of handling our takeoffs and touchdowns. So I guess I would venture to say I don't think that that's a practical solution to buy private land, have it owned by the city or the county, and then have access to a taxiway that's controlled by the Wichita Airport Authority. And just not really an answer, but more of a comment on your second point, whether the city of Wichita does or doesn't have a helicopter. I would say that the state legislature has found it to be a viable solution to have that aircraft here in Wichita. And we are pleased with the partnership that we've gotten so far from both the city and the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'd like to go ahead and move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner, Commissioner Beatty,
Aye.
Commissioner Howell, Commissioner Wise, Chairman Bluebow.
Aye, and the motion passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item B, Public Safety Wellness Center Proposal and Update.
Thank you again, Sheriff.
Well, good morning again, commissioners and council members. Chief and I are excited to talk about this particular item, which is the Health and Wellness Center. We have talked about 2 years ago, our health and wellness manager asked for me and some other folks to go to Louisville. The other folks couldn't make it. Crime Commission couldn't make it because they have a full-blown health and wellness center for their police department. We're very impressed with it. Originally, when we went there, we were looking at simply the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office. When I came back, there was no reason in the world not to involve all the other first responders in this particular county, including Wichita Police Department, Wichita Fire, and then some of the other partners within Sedgwick County, the DA's office, 911, EMS, Sedgwick County Fire, and Community Corrections. One of the things that we sometimes forget about, along, with like 911, the face of the front response or the first responders going to those calls is what everybody thinks about. But the ancillary side of it, which is a lot of the county entities, deal with the same struggles we do as well, dealing with those calls. And so it just makes sense that all of us share in a health and wellness center. If you don't mind, I'm going to play a video real quick.
Wendy Hummel. I work for the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office and I am the Health and Wellness Manager. The idea behind it originally was that the sheriff noticed that people that work at the agency were struggling, usually around the time of anniversary dates of line of duty deaths. Everything that we do in the wellness program is based on, it's evidence-based, it's research-based, and it's also needs-based on what the agency members want and need. We went all in on peer support because research was showing when it came to wellness resources and utilization of first responders and law enforcement that talking to your peers, someone else that understands what you've gone through, is something that people really like to access the most.
In the beginning, I thought I was just a little too manly for it, but it was really good. And it helped us kind of really become one with ourselves. And I think that maybe that was something that I hadn't found in my life. Something very devastating happened in my class upon us coming in and learning what we had to do and all of this and that. One of our classmates was murdered. If it wasn't for the responders, the peer support side of responding to all of us, I guess I probably would have just been even more broken.
So it used to be ingrained in my mind that mental health was a weakness. It was for wimps. It was for whatever other adjective you want to use. When the wellness unit here in Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office came about, I was very open-minded. And then it came full circle when I was involved in an incident January 23rd of 2025, where I received the benefits of the peer support. And just being in a room with people who it affected, even when they weren't on scene, was just very eye-opening. It allowed me to talk about my feelings at the time, and it made me set aside the tactical aspect, because when I'm in situations like that, the first thing that I want to think of is what could I have done better, right? Well, we don't have to go through all the tactical stuff all the time. Let's take care of you and how it affected you, and are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? And the stuff that you just don't really think of until it's kind of right there in front of you.
One of the things that I found super beneficial was that we will assign a peer support member to stay with you. And I think that helps a lot with a lot of those feelings and a lot of the nervousness that can come up, even if it's something as simple as sitting with you. The fact that, we'll call people on a Saturday, on a Sunday at night, and they'll come in and just be with you.
Once somebody does open up or decide to open up to somebody in peer support, they are kind of a bridge too. So if it's something that needs to go beyond just that conversation, there's the bridge and access to resources, whether it be an embedded therapist or other resources that are in the community or within the organization. One of the things that's really important for us is to get this information in the hands of people that are just starting their careers, because we want them to understand what resources are available to them. What's really rewarding is when you have somebody that has used the resources, has gone through something, and at the end of it, they credit the support that they got for them being able to get through it the way that they did.
You need to take care of you before you can respond to that 911 call to help somebody or stop a car or take somebody to jail.
It's helped me be able to deal with what goes on here and what goes on at home and create a good balance.
We now know that you need a space to recover. It's not weakness, it's being human. And I think that we've really formed a space in our wellness unit where you're allowed to have that moment to just say, hey, I'm going to take a breath, I'm going to recover, and then I'm going to get back to it.
So within the sheriff's office, starting in 2021, we started a health and wellness unit that's grown since that time to a health and wellness manager, one health and wellness deputy, one clerk, two full-time therapists, an interim or a intern therapist from WSU, and 64 fully trained peer support specialists. I will tell you, in 2020, during the height of COVID, we had 8 deputies go into crisis while at work, all of which were at the jail that we had to transport to the hospital. Since we formed this unit, we've had none. And what we're seeing out of it is higher retention rates. We're hiring more people. Yes, raises do help, but raises can't always be done. And this was another way to for us to show our staff that we cared for them. It's their immediate family and themselves that can reach out to our therapists to receive that help. The chief and I sat down about a year and a half ago and talked to the Crime Commission. The chief talked about scholarship programs that he'd like to see for the use of law enforcement, which the Crime Commission is working on. I talked about the Health and Wellness Unit. The Crime Commission has been a fantastic partner on this. They have done most of the legwork on this. And so they located a building at 3rd and Broadway and have started the negotiations with the First United Methodist Church to purchase Building D. Crime Commission will buy and own the building. Through a capital campaign, the Crime Commission is raising money to remodel the inside of the building to fit our needs. Working with the WPD to hire 2 more mental health therapists to provide services for WPD staff. The chief and I have sat down and talked about that. Thought it was very important that 2 more therapists would be a big benefit to the Wichita Police Department, like what we've seen with the sheriff's office. Still discussing with the Wichita Fire Department what exactly they're wanting within this facility. The Health and Wellness Center will provide office space for the mental health therapists. Office space will be provided on the 2nd floor for partners to have offices to work out of, or provide full-time employees at the center to run their programs. Space dedicated to either cancer or heart screenings or physical therapy. That's something that we're looking at. I know Wichita Police Department and now us are talking with Ascension because cops are more susceptible to heart attacks and strokes and those type of things. Firefighters are more susceptible to cancer. So those are things that we're looking at as future programming. A full gymnasium will be there that will be half workout equipment and a half gymnasium to either play basketball, pickleball, those other type of things that is available to all first responders 24 hours a day. The 3rd floor of the center is all conference rooms. There has been a lot of frustration in amongst the first responder area that there's not enough training space without us having to rent space to train our personnel. All the partners will have access to the 5 training rooms that's available on the 3rd floor. A large training room will be split into 2 so that we can remove the curtains or the wall. And then you would have one large training room that can fit about 150 people. One of the things that we did, we got connected with a group. We're going to ask them for funding for the building itself. They made it very clear they do not fund buildings. However, they have told us that they will give us $750,000 over 3 years to fund programming. So some of that programming will be trauma and training support, inpatient programming for employees with PTSD and or addiction, medical screening pilot project, strength and conditioning, physical therapy, and an annual wellness conference. When we look at the building itself, this is what it looks like at the corner of 3rd and Broadway. This is currently what Building D is, that's outlined in red. from a rendering that the Crime Commission had done with Schaefer, Johnson, and Cox, who's doing architectural work on this. This is a rendering of what it could look like in the future. From a standpoint of floor plans, when we talk about the first floor, there will be a separate door for individuals that are wanting mental health therapy. There's a stigma attached there. It's a big stigma within the first responder world, so that they will walk in straight to the therapist and they're not around other people and everybody going, oh, they're here because they're seeing the therapist. There's an entryway with some tables, some snack area. Of course, the gymnasium, the workout area. You go to the second floor, which is the bottom right, which shows the different office spaces that can be shared with all the partners, and then a conference room, and then upstairs or on the just above that is the physical therapy room and or screening room. And then on the third floor is the area that has the big conference rooms, which is this slide here. And so when we talk about the room that can be split in half, it's this one here. They can have tables and chairs and accommodate about 150 personnel for trainings. And then the other ones would be open as well. So the Crime Commission has conducted a rough estimate of what the cost for electricity, gas, water, sewer, trash, removal, janitorial services, and they estimated it high at $273,700. I know the chief has some other figures on that now because the city's been through it. But what we're asking for is the city to and the county to split those costs to bring forward a much needed health and wellness center for all of our first responders to be able to perform at their highest levels that we expect from them as elected officials and as the chief and as the citizens here in Wichita, Sedgwick County. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Morning again, Chief.
Good morning. Again, thank you, Jeff. There we go. So for the Wichita Police Department, when I arrived, the wellness program pretty much consisted of the Cortigo wellness app, which was not, or I should say, was not at all utilized by our employees. There was a lot of concerns about confidentiality. Mental health services were or still are provided by MPAC, but our employees experience extremely long wait times for appointments, and this includes when they're in crisis. That's a completely unacceptable situation for first responders. Previous leadership did not make a significant investment in employee wellness, and that's why we are well behind it, the Sheriff's Department, as well as pretty much behind the industry. So our goal in 2026 is to strengthen employee wellness and retention, promote the physical, emotional, and professional well-being of all employees to enhance morale, performance, and career longevity. Investing in our employees, it's not optional, it's essential. In progress wellness initiatives, we've just begun our monthly Shield newsletter, which goes out to all of our personnel. We have train the trainer training taking place for a program called Power in Peers, and that's a program that will be able to operate nicely out of the Pinnacle, where there'll be officers that will be able to meet with peers when they're struggling. And Deputy East is doing a fantastic job. And thank you, Councilwoman Tuttle, for connecting us with Ascension so that we can do pre-screening, as Jeff mentioned, for things like cardiovascular disease and cancer. And all of this will fit perfectly into the Pinnacle Wellness Project, working in collaboration with the Sedgwick County and the Wichita Crime Commission. And again, I echo Jeff's comments that the Crime Commission has done all the heavy lifting on this project, and they have been out raising the money. Without them, it simply doesn't happen. Right now, we have 906, or is it 916? Might be 916 authorized employees. That includes both professional staff as well as our commissioned officers. We want expanded access to mental health services in coordination with the Sedgwick County Sheriff. Jeff has a great program. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel here. We would just like to extend what he's already has in place. That would make it cheaper for both departments, I believe. This will give us additional training space. I've talked to council about that before. We have a beautiful police academy, but it's simply not large enough for our needs. So especially when we bring in-service training, this will give us another option to hold it over there. And there's certainly benefits to the location that puts it close to police headquarters as well as sheriff's headquarters. 24/7 access to quality workout space. Our hope is that when our officers are screened and they're given some type of a medical evaluation that includes a workout program, they automatically will have a place to go where they can carry out that wellness plan that's been given to them. And I know Sharon is passionate about 24/7 access to healthy meals, but we all know you're a police officer, you're working overnight. There's very, very limited options to begin with, and there's almost no healthy options. So that's serious. And it would really, we talk about a police officer over a 25-year career, eating junk every night. It takes its toll. I think there's a benefit to everyone having it at this central location. It's an area that's struggling right now with a homeless problem that we fight daily. I think it will really show our investment in downtown and encourage additional investment in that area of downtown. So our approach is phase one. We agree on the floor plans. That's pretty much done. Alan has given us a very aggressive opening date of early in 2027. I hope that we can make that happen, but I have 100% faith in him. It'll have a basketball court, workout space, training space, the healthy meals, mental health office space, Ascension physical wellness program, and expanded access to mental health services. Phase two. One of the big things that makes Chief Humphreys in Louisville is a friend of mine through Major City Chiefs. And one of the things he talks about is the importance of the physical therapy program. They have a company that is Protein Tactical. And they bring them in, and they have demonstrated that they are much better at getting their officers, when they're injured, healed and back on the street faster after being properly treated, so that they're going, when they go back to work, they are physically capable of going back to work, because when that doesn't happen, the likelihood of a reoccurrence of a more serious injury increases greatly. So after talking to him, I'm very excited about that. The chief of Oklahoma City recently went down to Louisville to look at that, and his people were very skeptical. But after spending some time with Paul's people, his risk management folks and financial people are all in. Obviously expanded physical fitness training. All of us could use that. As well as potential partnerships with local universities. And that would be for physical training as well as for rehabilitation. That's early on, but we think there's some great opportunities to work with WSU and possibly some other universities that would be mutually beneficial to provide some opportunities for some young students to get some real life training, and at the same time provide some quality treatment to our members. And I keep saying officers, but it's not. It's our entire department. Sometimes we forget the stress of being a 911 caller, and the stress of that job of talking to somebody on the phone and listening to some pretty horrific things. So that's why we believe that it's very important that all first responders, our medics, the things that they see, that it's very important that they have a place to go, and it just not be law enforcement centric. Denise Peters did a fantastic job of kind of working the numbers. This is our estimate. It's a little better than the one Alan gave us, but Alan told us that he went high intentionally, which made sense. You know, he did his numbers way back. So Denise recently did this, and this is where we think we would come in at. And all in with the mental health therapist, that's 2. We're looking at 325. But that's still preliminary. But I can't say to you that the importance of this project And to be quite honest with you, the fact that we do not have anything for our officers right now, or our employees, I should say, it's not a pretty statement in the year 2026 that we have nothing for our people, especially in a city as busy and violent as Wichita at times. Our people see a lot of bad auto accidents, a lot of crime, a lot of child abuse, and it takes a toll over time. And I do believe that our members would utilize this the way that this is being set up, that they would feel comfortable and trusting. Sometimes my employees now go over to the Sheriff's Department's program and ask to talk to somebody, and the Sheriff's Department never turns down a first responder, but that's not something sustainable for him either. We need an expanded program that can accommodate our entire first responder community, and again, sworn in professional staff. Okay.
Morning, Chief Snow.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. What? Oh. There's supposed to be other slides. Oh. Okay.
You get that.
Keep going.
Yep. Keep going. Yep. Is that what you were looking for, Chief?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No.
No, this isn't the right one either. I'm looking for,
While we're working on that, I want to take a second to recognize the Crime Commission. I know we've got a couple folks here. I'm Sharon Van Horn, Alan Banner here. We've got a few others. I know you guys have been working on this for some time and appreciate you guys stepping up and moving this forward. This is very important to the community.
Just while you guys are waiting, is this the first time this has been publicly presented?
I know.
I think we've had a staff meeting on it. The county sheriff would be able to answer that.
So this particular presentation, we have not provided in a staff meeting with the county. You asked me to provide information on what was going on with the Health and Wellness Center.
Thank you. I just make.
General, no.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Totally set aside from the project, I'm just more frustrated on the lack of communication about this project. It is in my district. Bob mentioned it to me one time before he retired. Vice Mayor Glasscock, this is his church, and there has been little to zero communication until I called the chief last Friday, and he was able to fill me in on as many details as he is aware of. But I think certainly when there's a financial ask coming for this city and the county potentially, it would be very nice if we were brought alongside, especially if these conversations have been had for 2.5 years. So I just wanted to put that out there that I am supportive of the project. I think nothing more than, we need to be able to provide these type of resources for our law enforcement, but I just we don't always communicate, even with our colleagues. Some people are privy to more information than the rest of us, and there's not a good dialogue within, which we can work on that. But just overall, we need to improve communication better throughout the organization.
So, Councilwoman, one thing that I'll mention on that, part of the communication issue is we couldn't talk about it because Crime Commission is looking for property. If it gets out that they're looking for property, this price is going to go up. We weren't allowed to talk about it until the Crime Commission was prepared for us to do that.
Yeah, Sheriff, I was going to add, I was only aware because of my involvement with the Crime Commission that it was very sensitive, that you summarized it well. So it was an outside party I didn't even know where they were looking at either. It was an outside effort. But I want to thank Alan and Sharon and the Crime Commission, a significant amount of time and a lot of money, private money to pull this off. So, I mean, to me, it didn't matter where it went. The goal was to do what they were trying to do on behalf of the police and the sheriff. So,
and the same with me, Councilman. I mostly know just from the crime commission, all the commissioners are members of the crime committee. It's not really, when the county commission would gather information.
I appreciate that. And I am grateful for the crime commission. I know there's a lot of private dollars and I'm certainly grateful for that. But with the information being sensitive, I understand that also, but it's definitely something that we should be celebrating and we should all have the same information.
I just want to echo the sentiments of Councilmember Ballard. I think there's a clear distinction between being unable to speak to the finance or even the real estate and looking at options and being informed about the details on logistics and getting maybe even the perspective from folks on the city council side about the issue of homelessness and how do we make sure that we are providing a space where our first responders are able to show up the best way that they can, not just with the issue of our unhoused neighbors, but with all the crime, as we heard from Chief Sullivan across the city. I would agree that that takes a mental toll on a lot of the folks who are serving on the front lines every day. But I think there's an opportunity to communicate better in terms of being able to ask for the perspective from the city and then hearing that perspective from the county and figuring out how we work together on joint messaging. So from a community standpoint, we can look unified in being able to move forward with these items. So I just wanted to affirm Councilmember Ballard. I certainly understand how frustrating it is at times when things are popping up in your district and you often don't know about those things. So I think that's a challenge both internally on the city side, but also with our neighbors and our partners over at the county as well.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks for the comments. I'm only aware of it because of my work with the fire department, with the wellness initiatives that hopefully you're going to get to see some slides and hear about in just a moment. But again, to the Crime Commission, thank you to Sheriff Easter for bringing this idea to us. Appreciate it. Worksite wellness is part of my background. Health and wellness is part of my background. That's why I'm so excited about the initiatives we've been doing with fire and hope to expand to police. But I do have lots of questions about slide 35 with the finances. I don't see insurance on there, and that's been something that I've been concerned about, not only insurance of the physical facility, but when you're offering services to people, you need to make sure in case someone gets injured. So there's a lot of liability insurance with worksite wellness that needs to be discussed. And then also, you know, we see the annual estimated cost of $325,000. Is the ask half and half from the city, the county? Is it because, you know, there's, you have sheriff, you have EMS, you have 911, you have fire, as the county, I'm looking at Ryan, but, and then the city, we have police and fire. I mean, I have lots of questions about what the cost share would be and what the county side would be when there's potentially more county involvement because there's just more personnel versus the city. So just excited to learn more. Thank you.
I have a question too, also, if you don't mind. How does this address you? Chief Sullivan talked about healthy meals. How does this address healthy meals for officers? I don't see anything in the budget for healthy meals.
No, and that's something that'll come eventually, but the idea is that it would be, they want to be free meals, so the officers would pay for them. So it would kind of be a self-sustaining project.
Is there a kitchen in there?
There will be, yes.
Will be a kitchen?
Well, I mean, I don't know, not about full kitchen, but I mean, you can order prepared healthy meals, like Factor, prime example, that you can have delivered. And then you can buy them. There'll be a place there to heat them up if you want to eat before or after a workout. But I'm not worried about that happening. Sharon is very passionate about this topic, so I have no doubt this will come to fruition. But the plan is not to cook meals there, but to have prepackaged healthy meals. Not trying to do a commercial for Factor, but that's the only one I can think of right now. My son eats them, and the fact that they could have a workout, grab a meal, healthy drink, shake, protein, and then head off to work and take it with them.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions here, Chief. What type of training are we talking about on the top floor? Is it mostly going to be just academic?
It could be peer meetings. I talked about that one program that we're in the process of putting together, so we can hold peer-on-peer meetings for officers that have been involved. It could be domestic problems. It could be abuse, substance problems, or job-related problems. That would be an additional to the private counseling that would be available. But it would be also, I mean, we just brought in a nationwide expert on PIO training in the sheriff's department attended. We had a lot of departments from the county there. that would be an opportunity for us to hold it right there. Another great use for it, because again, we are challenged. We're maximizing the capacity of the law enforcement training center. So there's many times when Jeff's doing extra training, bringing somebody in, Lita, another prime example. So we are, the captain is working on the Great Plains Leadership Academy right now, and that's a partnership with that we will be doing for our first line supervisors in concert with Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and KC Mo, where we'll be bringing in national leaders from around the country like Charles Ramsey to come in and expose our first line supervisors to ideas that are outside of what they're used to. So that builds on the training that we're sending our people to now. And eventually we probably won't have to spend as much time flying people around the country, because we'll be providing the top-notch law enforcement training right here in Wichita. And again, it might be for professional staff to bring them in for financial training. This is meant to be everybody's facility, not a cop facility, not a fireman facility, but a first responder facility, and our professional staff are absolutely first responders.
Okay. So no, not so much physical training.
Well, that'll be the second part. I mean, I talked about opportunities. Certainly would like to look at the opportunities with local universities to have students there that are becoming physical trainers and things like that, so that there's somebody in there that when you come with your doctor's bad diagnosis, somebody can put together a physical therapy. I mean, not a physical therapy, but a conditioning program for you, so that you start off slow and don't make the situation worse, but actually, and that's the healthy meals fits in perfectly with that. Get somebody exercising regularly, eating, and if they want, sit down with, I mean, that's one of the myths we want to dispel. You don't have to have a mental illness to sit down with a therapist. That's wellness, to take time and just, unload on someone the stresses of the job. It doesn't mean there's a problem. And we want to make sure they know they can do that without having to worry about some type of repercussion, for professional repercussion. And so this is something that will be, the executive staff will support this, but we will not lead it. There'll be that independent board that will oversee this. Confidentiality is extremely important.
Okay, and next questions for both you and Chief Snow. What do we have currently in the budget? Like you talked about Portico earlier. How much are we paying a year for that program?
I don't even know. I don't pay attention to it. I mean, did we get rid of that yet?
No, it's about 40,000 a year, I believe.
Yeah, we'll be eliminating that from the new budget
Okay.
and replacing it with things that are better.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of the question I have for both of you, is just, and they can be provided later as well. It doesn't have to be right now. Just kind of curious what we have in the budget already.
Again, Portico was not implemented properly because it was a top-down implementation instead of bottom-up. And I need officers to feel comfortable that they know their information is protected and cannot be seen by anyone else. And it just got off to a bad start where officers just felt that, management was able to see what information they would put in there. So we're going to eliminate that, replace that with something better. Everything we do, we're working with people of all ranks, as well as the FOP, to make sure that, that this is not what we're not mandating. We're supporting and being, just that, being supporters and champions of wellness, but not mandating things on people, or people need to feel comfortable.
All right. I support the services and the overall plan. So I was just curious as far as budget goes. We got that part of the job, unfortunately, too, to consider. So appreciate it, Chief. Thank you.
One question I got, maybe each of the managers could answer. Do we have any idea? There's 10 different groups here. It looks like it's pretty well split over city and county. Tom, do you have any idea how many county employees this is? And Dennis, I'll ask you the same on the city.
Well, so from the county side, we have all of the sheriff, corrections, 9/11, Regional Forensic Science Center, District Attorney's Office, I want to say 800 to 1,000 employees total. I'll let Dennis answer on PD fire side, but
yeah, when you add the fire and the professional teams with them, besides the sworn officers, I think we're talking 1,300 potentially for the city. I don't know, as we talk about the facility and building, what's already programmed in on the county side. Like I said, there's a building manager or deputy, about scheduling and other things, about what those other costs are factored in just for operations and facility management. But then on our side, we were talking about the 2 new therapists in addition to the ones the sheriff's already committed to on their side. So we do have to refine the numbers a little bit more.
Okay. Sure. Thank you for that. And Sheriff, I'm going to ask you, and you may not be the right person to answer this, might be over my left shoulder. Creatively funding some of the operational things that are happening. I know that you currently have 2 social workers within the jail. I know that Chief Sullivan talked about adding 2 mental health support staff into this program. County has ComCare. ComCare has a budget that is intended to get deployed back into the community because it's largely fee generated. They're property tax funds for the most part. Are there ways that we can utilize ComCare funding for the salaries that would reduce the operations budget? That we could specialize for public safety, social workers, and mental health supports? Is there a way we can utilize dollars that are already there so we're not looking at incremental dollars?
I think the one over your left shoulder is the one that's going to be able to answer that.
Morning again, Lindsay.
Morning again, Chairman. Delighted to be here at the podium. So we would need to do some evaluation to see if those ComCare funds would be eligible. As you may recall, because we're a CCBHC, we have to submit what's called a cost report that basically says, here's how we're going to spend these dollars. And so as long as we can find some similarities between what those services are that are being provided here versus what was included in the cost report that we're being reimbursed for, there is opportunity. But it could be a challenge to do that, but we will look into it.
Can I ask, when do we turn in our next cost basis report to Kate?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I will find out and
I would just
respond.
encourage us to explore this avenue.
Sure.
If you look at that budget, 220,000 is going to its 2 social workers. I think there's an opportunity here to utilize some funds. I hope there's an opportunity to utilize some funds that are generated from the state for these purposes that's designed to get deployed back into the community.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that would eliminate
We will be
75% of their budget if we can find another mechanism.
We will be as creative as we can without getting into audit jail.
That's good. Okay, Lindsay.
And if we can help transition, I know the fire chief is here to say a few things. Part of our conversation with the fire about what is the county's participation is we do have a couple initiatives underway on the fire side. So I see the fire side being more of a transition into being a full partner or full participant into this wellness initiative. And so the chief can outline that a little bit.
Yeah, and first of all, I do want to be very clear. Chief Easter reached out very early to me, for one, because we had started some cancer screening initiative. And I apologize for the slide deck not making it over. So technical difficulty, but I think I can explain our program pretty well without the slide deck. And much thanks to the Crime Commission. They have been wonderful, very open. And much thanks to the IFF. They've helped us get our program off the ground, and very indebted to Councilmember Tuttle for the doors that she's opened throughout this journey. We kind of started our health and wellness journey, or really focused on our initiative in 2019. And at that time, we had the opportunity to get a medical program manager. And at the time, their particular job was basically to advocate for our firefighters when they got injured at work. Because what we were finding was and nothing simple, but they were getting injured and it'd be a minimum of at least 3 months before we get them back onto a fire truck. And if they had to have surgery or anything, by the time it was pressing a year. So the whole entire time that they're out of work, healing themselves, we're backfilling for them. So significant expense to us. So that was step number one. And once we instituted the that medical program manager, what ended up happening was they became an advocate for our people, able to work through the work comp system faster, get them in, get them CT scanned or whatever they needed, get in to see surgeons quicker, get the surgery taken a lot quicker, and then back on the fire trucks. So our time in that particular, utilizing that particular resource happened to be about half of what it was before. So that was one of the first programs that we started. After that, we started with the initiative of our Health and Safety Committee, and that was in the last contract, in the 2021 contract, if I got my numbers right, 2023 contract. Yeah, in the 2023 contract, solidified in our bargaining agreement the significance of our Health and Safety Committee and the role that they would play. And then with like I said, the partnership with Councilmember Tuttle, the partnership with the IFF, the partnership with Ascension Via Christi, stepped up to the plate, and we began the cancer initiative as we begin to watch the numbers for firefighters contracting and having cancer, and the data on it just extremely significant. And probably the one thing that really hit home with me was the fact that during my tenure as a fire chief, I buried 5 firefighters in a very short period of time due to either a medical condition or from cancer. And it changed me. It changes a person, and definitely changed me. So with that, we started cancer screening. We did that in November of 2024. The whole idea was to run a pilot program. The idea of the pilot program was to take a gamut of our personnel from ages and demographics, city insurance, non-city insurance, and run it through a program and see, kind of work out the gaps. So we did that. And then we thought we were ready in February of 2025 to screen all of our members. At that time, we had 18 members. The results that we got back from those 18 members is 15 out of the 18 had something. They didn't even know that. Majority of them didn't have primary care physicians. Never even knew what a primary care physician was. And so significant results came back from that particular program that were eye-opening to us. And so we kicked the program. We thought we were ready in February of 2025, so we kicked the entire program off at that particular time and started doing screenings. The only means of paying for those was by insurance. And so we learned some gaps there. During that time, continued to work 2 different things. Councilmember Tuttle opened up some doors with the Kansas Health Foundation for us, and we were able to obtain a grant for $150,000 to be utilized to write a blueprint or a strategic plan on health, on building a culture of health and wellness. And that's the only thing the money can be utilized for, is to build that program, or is to build that health and wellness. That went out for RFP earlier this month. It's due in, all the bids are due in by April 24th. And then at that time, I don't need to explain the process to you folks. You understand the process.
If you don't mind, I just want to see if there's any real quick questions. We're kind of getting.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you guys have anything else you'd like to ask?
Well, the only other thing is that, like city manager said, we want to wait till we get the actual blueprint back to take a look at where our gaps are and where we're at. We've had some firefighters, unlike the police officers, we've had some of our own firefighters start a not-for-profit. You may have heard about it, Beyond the Call or Station Zero. And we get a lot of resources from them. They provide the gaps for us. So, like I said,
I might mention, Chairman, the fire chief will be getting up again with county fire chiefs. So
Yeah. So we can address anything additional in the next.
But if I can just say, what you shared about your medical program and the 15 firefighters that found, that is incredible. I wasn't aware of that data. I'd love to tell the entire world of the.
And if I can add on to that, and hopefully we'll get the slide deck, and I don't have the exact numbers, but out of the 484 firefighters that we have on a daily basis, over 300 and some have been screened. 327 have been screened. Our goal really was if we could get 30 firefighters in the pilot project, but when we found significant issues, firefighters decided to kind of put the ego aside, put the whatever aside. We started a promotional video where one of the firefighters who was completely healthy, but found that he had cancer because of these screenings and only because of these screenings, also engaged the families and tried to help them to encourage the firefighters to, break down the stereotypes of being macho and please go and get screened. I could not thank Chief Snow enough. I could not thank President Bush with the IFF enough for this initiative. And then Ascension via Christie, not only, and Chief is being very humble, the data that we found, now the partnership with the Kansas Health Foundation to help, they want us to craft a sustainable model that firefighters across the state can replicate. In Ed O'Malley's recent book, he highlighted Chief Snow and the IFF and this work as some of the most critical across the state for health and wellness initiatives. And then finally, we've also been trying to work on changing state legislation and following other states of what they're doing to ensure that these cancer screenings, but then other screenings continue, and then trying to advance the work with the fire department. So out of everything, not only that I've done since I've been on council, but in my health and wellness career, this may be the one thing I'm most proud of. So thank you to everyone involved.
Congrats, well done. Yep, absolutely.
Real quick, just one more question for Chief Snow. Have any of these nonprofits or outside organizations been engaged in this process? And have they shown have they shown a desire to be part of this as well?
I need help understanding the question.
Station Zero, for example, have they been
Yes.
brought in to okay.
Yes, they've sat at all of our committee meetings. They've been engaged the entire time, and they've been extremely, I mean, their whole purpose was to help firefighters. So they've been very focused on what can I do next? And they'll go out and solicit, they beat the streets to try to find funding for all the different things, all the different initiatives. So, kudos to them. Like I said, this has been a team. This is a team to make this successful so far. But we have gaps. We have issues that we need to work on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry to rush it in, but I do appreciate Councilmember Tuttle. I think you started this initiative. I'm working with Ted Bush and IAFF back whenever I was on council. So appreciate everybody that's worked together on this. So thank you so much. Also, I'd like to ask, can we give a round of applause to the Crime Commission for carrying the weight on this? I know. Really appreciate it. Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the information.
Second.
A motion is second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner, Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise. Chairman Blubow.
Aye. And the motion passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, on the next item, if you don't mind, I'd like to go to item E. We have our lobbyist, Jason Watkins, I believe on Zoom. I'd like to bring him in, get an update on, I'll go ahead and I'll let you call the item.
Item E, property tax budget updates.
Morning, Jason.
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
And we also have the city lobbyist as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
all?
We're looking for an impact as to, a lot of things are going on rapidly in Topeka, and we're trying to understand what this looks like to our local government, the city and the counties.
Yeah, would you like me to jump in and give a quick
Absolutely.
overview, Mr. Chairman? Okay, just for the sake of the record, Jason Watkins, Watkins Public Strategies, contract government relations for Sedgwick County. I think as you're aware, the legislature passed House Bill 2745. From a starting point, it's important to understand both the council and the commission have been dealing with what is called the revenue neutral rate, or RNR. So 2745 does not change the RNR. Everything that you've been required to comply with in terms of RNR stays the same. So I'm not going to explain R&R. What 2745 does is add an additional layer. And I think from our perspective, some challenges, to put it mildly. The first thing that 2745 does is say that when you look at your revenue from the previous year, you can increase the receipt of revenues, expenditures, actually, by either 3% or the CPI according to the Midwest index, whichever is less. So let me emphasize that if the Midwest CPI is 2.75, that's going to be your cap, not the 3%. If the Midwest CPI was 3.5%, you would not be able to increase 3.5% because you would hit the 3% cap. So it's Midwest CPI or 3%, whichever is less. If you decide to spend more than that equation that I just explained to you, the citizens of your taxing jurisdiction would be able to do what's called a protest petition. This is a different type of protest petition, though. What the city and county are both used to is if I meet the required threshold for a protest petition, that then results in an election. The election step is not required here. So if 10% of the registered voters in your taxing jurisdiction as of January 1 signed a protest petition, I'm going to talk about how that works, but the bottom line is if you get to the 10% threshold, there's no election. You will only be able to spend what you spent the previous year. I think there's also an important understanding here. You don't get, if you decide to spend more than that 3% or Midwest CPI, whichever is less, and that triggers a protest and they meet the 10%, you don't get to spend basically R&R plus the 3%. You're going back to actual R&R, right? It's what you spent last year, not the additional 3% or 2.5%, whatever the CPI was. I think that's an important distinction there. And again, it's no election. So it's 10%. If they meet the 10% threshold, you're spending what you spent last year and not a dollar more. In terms of how folks can formally protest, this, I think, gets very dicey. It gets confusing, and I think it's quite frankly going to create issues for several of our offices. One of the ways that I can protest is simply to sign the back of my R&R notice and return it to the county. The treasurer, the clerk, and the election commissioner are all responsible for collecting what we will call R&R protest petition signatures. So you will have multiple entities that will be receiving these protests, and it's over a very short period of time. I think there's a September 1, is it September 15th, Kimberly?
Yeah, it's September 15th, and they have 7 days after that
To certify that those were qualified electors, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they were registered to vote as of January 1. So yeah, very short. I think almost impossible. We have a great clerk, we have a great treasurer, we have a great election commissioner in Sedgwick County. I can't, for how those notices work with the city, I can't speak. Kimberly might be able to better speak to that, but I do believe it's just the county clerk, the county treasurer, and the election commissioner that's responsible for the collection of those. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Good morning, Kimberly.
Good morning.
Kimberly, you want to state your name for the record?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. Kimberly Ginsher Swati with Ginsher Swati Public Affairs. And apologies. I'm not sure that I was on camera there for a little bit. So it's good to be with you all this morning.
So, I mean, essentially, again, the highlights or the lowlights, depending on your perspective. It's the 10% trigger, the short amount of time in terms of being able to certify those signatures. I mean, I think that's really the gist of the bill. One of the concerns, and we worked on this both on the lobbying side from the city and the county, there's no exceptions.
Jason, would you mind taking a quick question from Commissioner Meixner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Jason. Kimberly, I'm glad you joined us. So the R&R notice gets mailed to property owners.
That's correct.
But the rule said registered voters as of January 1st. So can a registered voter that's not a property owner also protest? And how would they protest? How do they protest? Sign a petition of some kind?
Yeah. So it's not just property owners. It's any registered voter. The R&R notice can be signed by the property owner to qualify as a protest signature. But the county must make available on its website, and those elected offices that I just mentioned, the clerk and the treasurer, as well as the election commissioner who's not elected but's appointed by the Secretary of State, they must make available protest petition forms to any member of the public that seeks one.
Councilmember Hoheisel's got a question as well.
Yep, just two quick questions. One, thank you guys for all the work you're doing for us up there. Does that mean, is there anything in there that just automatically reduces the mill levy when this happens? Or is that kind of left to us and our own devices?
No, so that's a really great question, Councilmember Hoheisel. So the legislature worked to attack property tax issues from really 3 different vantage points. And so this was a bill to limit valuations and increases. And then there was a separate bill that was designed to lower the mill levy. And then there was a third bill, which has not come out of conference committee yet, that is designed to reapportion sales tax. So this bill was designed simply to limit all increases and to address valuations. And also to the question that the Commissioner Meitzner asked about the protest petition, Jason's absolutely correct about the process. And the bill is so specific in that it actually provides the specific language that has to be included on that R&R rate, and then, or on the R&R form, and then any other public notice. So that we'll get all of that information to you all. And I know the clerks and treasurers will have all that information disseminated to them as well.
Okay, second question. I can't remember the exact vote, but it was not a veto proof majority. Has the governor indicated where she's leaning on this?
Correct. No, you're exactly correct. The vote in the Senate was 22-18, and that was after there was some changes back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. And then in the House, so that is 5 votes short in the Senate of veto proof. And then in the House, it was 63-59. And a motion was made to send the bill back to conference. And so anyway, none of them are veto proof at all. The governor did receive 2745 yesterday, and I'm scheduled to meet with the governor's staff tomorrow, actually, I believe, to officially request a veto.
Any other questions?
I just want to make another point here. If you sign a petition for anything else in government, it requires your printed name, your address, some other information, and then of course your signature. And in this case, it sounds like flipping over the revenue neutral rate form, R&R form, that that information may not be structured that can even happen, first of all. Second of all, there might be 3 owners of a home, or even 5 owners of a home. The owner might be out of state. There might be 10 rentals. They get, 10 R&R forms to their address out of state, and they're not even a registered voter at all. There might be renters that would like to protest tax increase, but they don't have a home at all. So there's a lot of complexity. Second of all, I pay taxes to 9 taxing jurisdictions. Maybe I want to protest Derby's and not protest Sedgwick County. So now you have to indicate which one am I protesting, and everyone has a different threshold for what is a successful protest. So I have to be able to indicate which one am I protesting, and then the election office or someone's going to figure out whether or not those thresholds have been met for that jurisdiction. Because there's about 300,000 voters or registered voters in Sedgwick County, but every jurisdiction is going to have a different threshold. And you have to indicate which one of those are you protesting. So this is incredibly complex, and they have 7 days to turn this around. Again, I'm all for responsible governance, but this is a little not going to work.
Chair, if I could. Jason, thank you. Appreciate, really, thank you for all the work you guys are doing up there. This was a interesting legislative session, it appears. Obviously, personal opinion, I have no concerns with the 3% cap. Zero concerns with the 3% cap with the way we operate the county. But I do have some concerns with the impact it has on our general obligation bonds that are outstanding and any future bonding capacity. And then I think this actually, in my view, is the most, this is probably the most dangerous aspect of what's moving forward. It's not the property tax lid. It is actually what it does to the bonding capacity. Would one of you be able to describe what we should be concerned about in regards to how this impacts our capacity and our full faith and credit of our existing bonds that are on books?
Sure.
And future bonding?
Yeah. Where I was starting to go before we had this round of questions was there were several exceptions that Kimberly, myself, and others were pushing for. The bonding exception being one of those. Our CFO did a great job of creating a document that explained how this works, what could happen with interest rates. I think I saw something maybe in an email or a Facebook post from you, actually, Commissioner, talking about we're one of 106 counties in the country that has a AAA bond rating. Anyway, suffice it to say, they allowed for no exceptions. And so the concern being that when you go to a bond sale right now, bonds are purchased, there's contracts involved, and basically the full faith and credit of the county and the city when they're issuing bonds backs those bonds. You lose the ability to back them with your full faith and credit under 2745. I guess an easy way to explain this is you're basically, you currently and in the past have been guaranteeing that if it required a mill levy increase in order to pay back the bonds, that the bondholders would be able to require that of you. You're now losing that ability in 2745. That is going to result most likely in higher interest rates on the bonds that you sell. I can't predict what it does to the county's bond rating or the city's bond rating. My assumption would be that it would impact it adversely. But there's almost no question that this is going to impact the interest rate that you pay. It was an argument that I made to the Senate Tax Committee. I would point out that the bill as it left the House did have an exception in it for the bonds. The Senate showed no interest in that. So while I'm on this topic, before we jump back into more questions, I'll just say the other exceptions that we pushed for that were not granted were for new construction, new development. I'll break this down to the simplest level. If the city or the county has new development and we add a housing development like mine, I think it's 185 185 new homes. You know, those 185 new homes have streets in front of them. If there's a fire, they expect a response from the fire department. If there's a medical emergency, we're expecting EMS. If there's something that requires law enforcement, you know, we're expecting law enforcement. And so as our communities continue to grow, we need more firefighters. We'll need more police and sheriff. We'll need more EMS. The way 2745 is structured, you will get no ability to bring in more revenue, spend more revenue based on growth. The other thing is we have a lot of economic development deals out there as tax abatements that have been issued to, say, aviation manufacturers, which sometimes are sizable. As those roll off, those tax abatements end, and those taxes are supposed to come back on the tax roll, you'll not be able to spend that money because there's not been an exception carved out for that. So,
Okay, so that's incredibly helpful to understand. I have, again, I want to reemphasize, I have zero problems with the tax lid. And Sedgwick County government, we haven't, I'm not speaking for our CFO, but we have very low debt comparative to what we could. I think it's only 9% of the state's capacity, I think, or 11% of the states. We have very low debt here, but it's still $60 million of debt on general obligation bonds. I don't know, Lindsay or Mark, maybe if it's okay if I ask you a question. Mayor, is it okay if I ask Mark a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Mark Manning to come up and give a little bit of what the impact for the city will be if this
Nicole, I
happens.
believe you have a slide you're going to put up for us as well on this.
So I think my question is, do we have concerns? Obviously, the full faith and credit, there's an obvious concern about a downgrade, a credit rating downgrade that would cost taxpayers more dollars in bond interest payments. Do we have any concerns that they could call debt? That there's a contractual violation and they can actually call bond debt? Is that a concern that we should have?
Commissioner Mark Manning with the Department of Finance. Yes, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to get into what the legal ramifications would be. But you're right, all the GO debt that we have outstanding is based on our current unlimited tax pledge. And I think you could probably make an argument that we would be in violation, we, the city, would be in violation of those covenants. Now, whether there'd be litigation, like I said, that's not for me to say, but certainly it'd be a concern for us, no doubt.
Mark, how much, about $60 million of outstanding bond debt here? Is that a correct number, Lindsay? Where's the city at compared? Now, you have to bond a lot more because of specials and things that you do. Could the public be aware of really what kind of scale we're talking about?
We have about $500 million of outstanding GO debt. Now, only about 60 million of that or so is our at-large portion, which is funded by property taxes, but we are a large issuer. We fund a lot of capital improvement projects and we're an active issuer.
Thank you.
And we've got that slide up here now for you.
Okay, I'll be very brief because frankly, the previous speakers have covered most of this. I just wanted to provide you with some concerns that the city has about this legislation. As it was noted, we would lose our current unlimited tax pledge. We would have a limited tax pledge. Credit markets don't like risk. Capital markets don't like risk. This would increase our risk. What does that mean? It means that we would pay more to borrow money. And it also means it's highly probable that we would be downgraded. The city of Wichita is also AAA. That's very rarefied space. I think it's highly probable that we would lose our AAA rating. So we're not very excited about that. As I noted, we're an active issuer. We're going to issue $30 million worth of special assessment each year, most likely. Depends on what interest rates would be. But it's very conceivable that this could add $500,000 to our issuance each time we issued special assessment debt, which is one of our strategies for home prices because our special assessments lower the price, the entry point for new construction. We've also got a lot of other active capital improvement projects we'll be issuing debt for. Bottom line is all those debt issuances will cost us more money. That reduces our capacity for additional capital improvement projects. We're very aggressive in building fire and police stations, park facilities, things of that nature. We would have less capacity for all of those infrastructure improvements. Let me talk briefly about the new construction, which was mentioned previously. If you look over time, the city of Wichita new construction is going to average about 2% of our assessed valuation growth each year. Well, 2% is about $3 million a year for the city of Wichita. And I think as noted pretty accurately, what the purpose of that new construction increased revenue is. Our costs go up when we expand. We would no longer have that inflow. Again, on average, that's going to be $3 million a year. I'd also point out we have a large tax increment financing district downtown that likely will expire in 27 or 28. That will significantly benefit both the city and the county under current legislation. Under this legislation, the removal of that tax abatement would have zero benefit to the city or the county. And that's probably, give or take, probably $500,000 a year for each one of the entities. And finally, I'd just point out the obvious, which this would reduce the city's capacity to fund community priorities in our operating budget. Public safety is our number one priority. That consumes over 60% of our general fund. It also happens to be an extraordinarily expensive business. And you heard two really good examples of that today. We've done a really good job, I think, over the last 30 years or so of funding public safety without raising our mill levy and, in fact, cutting our mill levy. And I think the county's experience has been very similar, but it would be a significant challenge to fund our current service level under the provisions of this bill, I believe. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I just wanted to be brief, and a lot of this ground was covered already.
Thank you very much, Mark. Commissioners, I believe we'll be discussing this as well tomorrow when we have our legislative updates, as well as our election commissioner reached out to us about some timing issues that he's questioning whether we can make. So hopefully we can have that discussion. Does anybody have any quick questions for Mark?
It's not really for Mark, but I would just say, I really think this is going to get vetoed. And I think it's upon us at an en banc meeting to discuss what would move us from just being opposed to legislation to saying, we may not like the state getting involved in this, but if they're going to, here's some guardrails that we would like to see. And I would just throw out there, Sedgwick County for the last 18 years, and Lindsay is welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, but last 18 years on our long sheet, if you look at our tax levy growth over the last 18 years, we've averaged 3.01% tax levy increase for 18 years. So again, there may be years where 3% is higher than we need, and some years maybe 3% is not as high as we need. But I would suggest 3%. Give us the latitude to go up to 3% and trust us. The electors have options of replacing us if they don't like what we do. I think 3% and not the CPI ought to be our cap. I would like to see that happen. I'd like to see a move into an election rather than a protest petition. I think I used to not think that, but I've changed my mind on this because I think the election is more doable. And I would rather see them fix the bond problem that you just described. They did those three things. I think I would suggest that the legislature goes back to conference during the veto session and try again. And I think if we give them some suggestions, perhaps they would come back with something that's more workable. I think we don't speak to it. We're going to end this year with no reform whatsoever, and then we'll be back at this again next year. So I would rather see us suggest what would take to fix the bill. Thank you.
This also has some large impacts on fire as well that we'll want to discuss tomorrow. If there's not any other questions, I want to take a motion or make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Dennis Marstall. I wanted to highlight why we had the two lobbyists on there. One, you do have the one pager on the impact from the city in front of you, but I wanted to ask the lobbyists, my understanding is that the Kansas League of Municipalities is firmly against and lobbying that way. I don't know if the County Clerks Association, the Treasurers Association, and others are actually taking a formal approach as well, so they may be able to speak to that. But this is alarming, and I think, one, it's alarming because there's been no consultation with local government on this. There has been zero discussion about a 3% CPI. What is best? Growth. I mean, growth in construction alone. So there's a lot of frustration. But I do want to know, Ms. Waddy, if you can say if you know the trade associations for clerks or treasurers are formally opposed and lobbying that way?
Great question, Mr. City Manager. So the league has been strongly opposed. Jason, you can confirm on the county association, I believe so. The clerks and the treasurers, they were put in an interesting position. And so I think that they do share some concerns about the timing and their ability to work through the process put forward. But I think, as Commissioner Beatty mentioned, the the 3% cap was not necessarily an issue for many of those organizations, but the timing was a concern. And Commissioner Howe, I will say for this whole group, actually, you may want to pull up the version of House Bill 2745 as it came out of the House committee. That I think was probably a much more workable piece of legislation that could have had a positive impact, because even though it does have the 3%, but it did have the exceptions, those critical exceptions. There was also a fund that could be distributed out between the cities and the counties, and that probably was not necessarily going to move forward. But the concepts of reform of the valuations, and then also of the exceptions for growth and for the general obligation bonds and other types of bonds were included. And so that House amended version of the bill of 2745 is probably something that folks should look at.
The Senate can still they can still agree to that version of the bill if they wanted to.
They
even in a
could.
veto session. They could have something this year that probably wouldn't get vetoed.
They'd need a new vehicle, but you know, when if this gets vetoed by the governor, they just need to find a new vehicle. And but yeah, I mean, the bottom line to your question, Commissioner Al, is they could put the original contents of 2745 as it left the House into a new package and run it across both floors in a CCR.
Mayor Wu.
I know that this is a very fluid conversation as it now stands in front of the governor's table, whether or not she will veto this. However, I think the concerns from both the city and county have been raised very clearly. What I would suggest is, because we are in the middle of budget conversations, both at the city and the county, I would like to hear from Mark and tell us what are some of the next steps that we will be taking as a city, whether or not this gets vetoed or gets passed by the governor.
Mayor, that's a good question. I think you might have a handout that has our budget calendar on it, but it's basically driven by statute, and we are right in the middle of our budget process, as I'm sure the county is. It's going to be a significant challenge, I think, to develop a budget in this environment if we don't have certainty on what the legislative provisions are going to be on the amount of property taxes we're going to have available. I think it'll complicate a lot of our engagement process. The calendar is definitely a problem for the county. It's less of a problem for the city, but it's also problematic for the city because we literally could find out on September 25th whether or not we were going to revert back to an R&R budget if a petition was successful. So that both bodies would literally have 3 or 4 days to know that what their original budget proposed as was not going to be relevant. So I would guess that the strategy there would be to develop 2 budgets throughout the entire process, which would be extraordinarily laborious and not desirable. I'll just leave it at that. Very complicated. So there's a number of problems, Mayor, but it's going to make our budget process extraordinarily complicated and complex, I believe, and it's going to divert us from what the budget process probably should be about, which is how we can provide services to our citizens that they need.
We don't have anything else. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to receive and file. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner, Commissioner Beatty,
Aye.
Commissioner Howell,
Aye.
Commissioner Wise, Chairman Bula.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item C, Sedgwick County and Wichita Fire Update of Responsibilities, Training Update, and Conversation for Future Consolidation.
And keep in mind, we've only got 15 minutes on the calendar. We've still got 2 items, so hopefully we can. Loaded it up pretty good. Yeah. I know.
Good morning, City Council and Board of County Commissioners. Doug Williams, Sedgwick County Fire District Fire Chief. And we want to talk today about the first response update model, and we're going to give some updates on our training programs and where we've collaborated on some projects. Chief Snow's going to address that a little bit later. I want to talk right out of the gate about the emergency response piece of it and some of the shared services. And then, like I say, she'll go into the training update and you can talk about next steps. And collaborative emergency response is what we're calling our enhanced first responder now, that we're working together to try to build a better response for our citizens. The citizens has been made many numerous times by commissioners to me. They don't care what the emblem is on the fire truck. They just want a fire truck at their home when they need it. And so the goal of that is to get one there the quickest we can, provide the service that we need, as well as provide for the safety of our firefighters. And in doing so, our mission that we talk about in this first responder agreement starts with provide the highest level of service to our citizens and the number of people in the most efficient and effective manner. And the guiding principles we've been using is financial impact, personnel impact, and our operational effectiveness. And once again, this is all about getting the right resources there as successfully as we can within a budget that you give us to operate that in. The objectives is to process, to update, identify the transitional area. And when we talk about the transitional area, we'll talk about the black line a little bit. And what we call the transitional areas is the outlying areas of the city, as well as the inlying areas of Sedgwick County Fire District, to where we cross over a lot and have a lot of interactions with each other, is what we refer to as a transitional area. And how we measure the impact on both departments and identify the standards of coverage for the transitional area. A little bit of history on our agreements that we've had with Wichita and Sedgwick County goes back quite a ways. Generally, one thing I will tell you as we go through this, most of these agreements are created by a bad event. I know I don't have to say it to commissioners and council members, but in the fire service, almost every advancement, and especially when it costs a lot of money, is driven by a bad event. That's the biggest thing that drives it. 1987 was, I've been around here a few days, but that was before my time. But when I hired on, the old timers talked about a story where Wichita had annexed around a Sedgwick County fire station, and there was a fire occurred when we had no agreement. We had operated on different radio frequencies. And the story I heard, to put it bluntly, is the Sedgwick County firefighters stood in front of the station and watched the apartment building burn, while Wichita responded from stations that were quite a ways further because they hadn't built out into those areas. And that's the old timers. What told me was the story behind the first mutual aid agreement that was created, which is in 1987. That agreement essentially said that one unit from the other department would respond, but they would do as little to commit as they possibly could. They were to be there until the other department showed up. Then they were supposed to gather their stuff and get out the door. Don't lay hose, do just the bare minimal until the other department got there. That was the original agreement as when I hired on in 1988, we operated under. In 1995, there was some work done to advance that and go more into, okay, we're going to send one unit to each other's calls, but we're going to commit, we're going to really go all in with each and help each other and not be so caught up in getting out of there and getting done. That also brought in some little bit more of a fluid, more units could respond than what was originally there. When we go to 2004, the East Side Agreement was made between the managers at the time, and that was when Station 38 was created, and they created a joint unit with Wichita Fire and Sedgwick County Fire in Station 38. They have now have Squad 6 there. We have Engine 38 in a mutual station that's going on over 20 years now. So. And then the enhanced responder agreement was updated once again in 2012 with Chief Blackwell and Chief Kermode. One of the things to note with the 87 agreement that has been very beneficial to Chief and I is that They created in that agreement that it doesn't have to be revoted on by the board and by the city council. It gives us the opportunity to review it annually and make updates to it. So there's been some leeway in there for us to keep going every year and be updating as we see necessary to maintain what we want to get to. The 2012 agreement, once again, they updated it with Chief Blackwell and Chief Kermode. The 2016 agreement was an agreement on training, and it was to give more access to the regional training center for us than what we'd had in the past. And that was pushed by the mayor and Chairman Howell at the time, and also involved some discussions with the law enforcement training center. And so at that time, it was a focus on giving us more access to the training center. Which it did give some, but it was also highly challenging, and a lot of scheduling went into that. 2018, Chief Snow and former Fire Chief Thomas Leak of Sedgwick County worked on an enhanced agreement after an event, and that they worked on it, but that agreement, in my opinion, created some problems because it was driven by each department would send one unit to the other, and it was highly restrictive. And I felt it was very, very not well designed. And then in 2019, I'm getting in between here, but in 2019, when I came into my role, I will tell you right out of the gate, Chief Snow called and wanted to set up a meeting. We set up a meeting the first month I was in. It's actually still the interim. And she walked in and she told me right out of the gate, what do I need to do to get rid of this one unit response into the city? And she goes, it's stupid that you could have a fire station a quarter mile away from the city limits and your truck sits in quarters while we respond further away. And I turned around and I said, well, that's great, Chief. I would be glad to do that if you'll push the black line out. The black line, when it was originally created, was cut inside of Mays, Hayesville, Goddard, Park City, and that was very intentional, that Wichita Fire would not send an engine company out into those communities. And to me, that was very troublesome. As a field supervisor, I was in command of a scene in Hayesville, and Squad 19, because that was the only unit Wichita would allow to respond, was on a medical call, and Station 34 fought a structure fire with a burn patient with 5 people while Engine 19 sat in quarters 3 miles away. And also Station 36 got caught by the train at K-15. So we left our people totally backed up because of an agreement that tied our hands. We started the pilot program, what we called the first enhanced responder pilot program in 2019, 2020 timeframe when we started that. And we worked under that pilot for 3 or 4 years until in 2024, we tweaked it and made it work better, and we signed an agreement, and that's where we're at today. So we think that it does great things for us. We think that it gets, engine and truck companies on scene quicker, and both ways. And we've done Mayday command training with all of our chiefs are in the same rooms being trained together. We've worked very hard to make our SOP, standard operating procedures, match theirs and ours on scene so that no matter who's in command, we understand each other's lingo, each other's communications, and so that should be seamless. I mean, I can only think of maybe 2 SOPs for fire scene operations where we don't agree, and we have an understanding that when we're in their environment, we operate under theirs, and when they're in ours, they operate under ours. And it's only 2 in all of and one of them pulling meters. So, I mean, it's not critical mission stuff that we're talking about. But like I say, and at that period of time, we started doing the combined evolutions in 2019, 2020, 2021. We did 3 combined evolutions. We did the engine truck evolution that Wichita led for us to participate all of our people in. Then we turned around and did what we called a rural water supply tender evolution scenario, where we led and all of Wichita's stations participated in it. And then we did a Mayday command level training and brought all of our people through that with Wichita Fire. So we've done a lot of things in this since these agreements started to change how we operate and make it safer and better for all of our people on both sides of the fence. I already talked a little bit, I'll talk quick. We talked about standardizing the call types, standardize mostly what we send on the same calls. And also we've established the closest units regardless of jurisdiction in the transitional area. When we talk about, here's our station map and the transitional area, the blacked out area is the city of Wichita. The black line lighter, it would be where the black line is outside the city limits of Wichita. So essentially everything within this colored area would be what we consider the transitional area as far as what we're doing the first enhanced responder. And that goal of that is faster times due to the station proximity to the incident, getting the second and third units there quicker. And also the reliability to strengthen because one entity is committed to the other. Each can seamlessly provide the coverage. So it's easy to cross over when we have that ability. And also it provides additional resources on the scene beyond what we would originally give right out. It's quicker. It's just going to be quicker and more reliable for us. In 2020, and my slides got out of order somewhere. Like I say, in 2020, we started the pilot and we did the transitional area. We standardized our SOPs. We worked on the tactical operations. We did all the command level training together. We did the 3 evolutions I've already talked about. And once again, we're focused on safety officers. One thing we've done too is we send the 2 closest battalion chief, division chiefs to an event, irregardless of jurisdiction. One takes command, the other one generally becomes a safety officer, and that's irregardless of the incident. And then, like I say, in 2023, we signed it official from the pilot and tweaked it a little bit and made it official. The station locations, and one thing I think to point out of why I view this as so valuable is, as you can see in the blue stations, we surround Wichita, as well as you can see the Wichita stations. But I think you can take a look at, and we'll show you in a slide here in a minute. I think you can take a look at Station 33 and Station 35. One's in Mays and one's in Goddard. You can see the distances that we have, and you can see 3 Wichita stations that are going to be closer to our station than our second in unit. So, one of the things I think it was interesting, one of the conversations, and, we have some people that, don't always agree with movement and changes and things like that. And, I just remember one of the conversations when you look at Station 33 and 5, because that's a real easy one to talk about. Station 33 on a building fire was driving in front of engine 21 on the way to Goddard. Station 35, second in fire truck into Goddard, was driving right past Station 31 to go to Mays. I said, I don't have to hire a consultant to see that doesn't make sense, that fire station setting there doesn't make sense. But in the same token, Station 34 down at Hayesville, Station 37 up in Bel Air, you can see that they set right on the edge of the city of Wichita. So once again, we can get into those areas a lot easier than Wichita can, a lot quicker, and it doesn't make any sense to be under that 1 unit restriction, which was in that 2018 agreement, to where we would have a unit set in Station 34 and only allow 1 unit to go into the city and the second closest unit setting in the station. And that just doesn't make sense for our citizens on either side of the fence. So I think overall, we can show that these responder agreements have made a huge impact on service to our citizens, getting our firefighters, their second and third units on scene quicker, which is safety as well as performance measures. And here's the outcome of the first responder agreement in a dotted map that Chief created for us, or her staff, I should say. And this is our response into Wichita, and you can see by the map where those areas are, and where we help Wichita a lot more than. And once again, it's all located in the areas where our station's set right on the edge of the city. So, and then vice versa, the areas that Wichita helps us a lot more. And I wish we would have gotten the map in here, the old black line, but just remember the old black line cut out Goddard, it cut out Mays, cut out Park City and Hayesville. And so you can see that all these dots where Wichita is helping us out a lot are in those communities. And as you build Station 23, it's going to fill a hole down here in the Southwest for both of us are weak. So I do think that, you know, the collaborative station studies and continuing to work on where we can help each other and save money, save resources, I think it's very beneficial as we move forward. And as far as I found this interesting, chief staff came up with this. Both ways, back and forth, the percentage numbers are about the same. 63% of the calls where we go into Wichita are medical, 9% are other, and 28% are fire. And it's within a percentage where we go into, or where Wichita comes into the district. It's once again a 60-some% and 10%. And so it's within 1%. I thought that was a really interesting, that surprised me. I didn't know that it would be there. And now Chief Snow will talk about the training piece of it.
Thank you, Chief. Provide you an update in October of 2025. Both the City Council and the County Commissioners came together and they approved the concept of having a cooperative and coordinated regional training facilities. And it was based on several different things. It was after a study where we provided for you the operational needs, capacity limits, the site feasibility, fiscal stewardship, and also our long-term sustainability. Moving forward then, to kind of give you an update of what we've been doing at the training ground. Currently what we've been doing, we meet on a monthly basis, and it's not just our training staff. Deputy chiefs meet, and also the fire chief and I meet on a monthly basis. And what do we talk about? We talk about planning. We talk about scheduling things. We coordinate our facility uses. We talk about recent events and our gaps, things that we need to be working on. And as Chief alluded to, we continue to take a look at our policies and our procedures and how we can align them the best possible way. Recently, we've had recruit classes in which we tried to schedule live training or live fire training. We tried to do that March through May. So we have to coordinate that out at the training facility because of the Connex Village and the number of personnel it takes to do those safely, which is about 12. Both of us have been involved operationally with promotional testing. We're currently finishing that up this month. And then we had a fire in November of 2025 up in Park City, the Kerman Street Fire, in which Wichita had 2 May days at that time. So it provided us an opportunity for us to get together and to take a look at what the gaps were in that May Day. And as Chief alluded to earlier, we had gaps in our command and control. That was something that we needed to work on. So that's on our we've been working on it. We'll continue to work on that. We've had gaps in the actual way that we do procedures in May Day training. So we went back over all of our SOPs. That also includes Sedgwick County EMS because they play a role in that. So they have been involved in our policy making and also in our training of the May Day and our search and rescue. Midterm, the other things that we've been working on is we both have firefighters that need EMT training. So we share our resources the best we possibly can. And on the books, we have coming up some fire instructor certification courses that both the city and the county firefighters are involved in. That's put on by the KU Fire and Training Center. Like I said, we had originally when we did the May Day, we worked out our policies and our procedures. We have those down now. We will now begin doing our May Day training, actually hands-on type of things, and work out any other gaps that we have. Also on the horizon, like I said, with EMS is fire victim removal and patient handoff to Sedgwick County EMS. As far as policies and procedures, we had to do some alignment with our ICS management of patient care. That involves Sedgwick County EMS, and we're currently working with PD outside of just the fire departments, but we're working with PD and also our other first responder partners on active shooters and our regional and incident management. As far as long-term, next up, after we get done with the fire instructor, our next thing is we are looking at certification for our live fire instructor. Anytime we host a fire in Connex Village, it takes 12 people every time, and you can't continue to use them because it gets very hot. They get exhausted. We have to give them break times. So that our numbers, we need to expand those numbers. So that's what we're going to work on next. We'll continue to work on procurement of equipment. And what I mean by that is we just, the Wichita Fire Department is working through an RFP for new station alerting. Sitting on that panel with us was Director of Communications 911, so that we can, so that she has an integral part in the station alerting moving forward. We also, Chief and I, and we've been doing this for years, we buy off each other's bids. And also we share resources in regards to some of our maintenance. For example, some of our radios and stuff like that, the radio maintenance. So making significant advances there. Chief and I, things that we continue to work on. We had a line of duty death, unfortunately. In August 1st of 2024, one of the things that came out of the NIASH report was our rehab services. Chief and I continue to work on that aspect of it. We've got to enhance that. So we continue, we're still working through that process. We don't have anything significant yet, but we're getting closer. And the other thing is we continue to take a look at all of our resources and are they stationed in the right locations? For example, brush trucks. So as we move forward on our shared operations, just real quick, I went through most of this already. Officer Villman, I talked about EMT, I talked about rehab, I talked about researching redundancy between fire and emergency management. Fire brings the real-time operational experience. Emergency management deals with the long-term planning and coordinating. So we are in the room all the time. You'll see, especially for city council staff, we ran one tabletop. We're getting ready. We've got another one coming for you. We'll continue to work with emergency management in regards to those. Other shared services, K9 dog. Currently, the county has Accelerant K9 dog. We've used it at least twice in the last month. We share those back and forth. The city used to have the K9 dog. The county now is blessed to have the K9 dog. We have a live search dog. We help each other in those avenues too. All of our fire investigators are under the South Central Kansas Arson Strike Team, and we just recently completed, both departments completed some joint training at the IAFF. Things that we can look forward to. Chief and I continue to have conversations in regards to our future locations. We use those heat maps quite a bit. We base that on data. I know that he's working on some things with some of his Class 2 and Class 3 cities, depending on how those agreements turn out, will give us opportunities to take a look at some of our areas in which we respond to quite frequently, both of us, and we can better locate. City's going to have an opportunity to rebuild some of our Northeast stations, depending on what happens with his agreements. So may change locations, potential locations for those moving forward. And like I said, we currently look at our resources and we coordinate our equipment maintenance and our purchases on that. And with that, then I'll turn it over to City Manager Marsh Stahl.
The only thing I have to add is, one, thanks to the chief. Certainly, I'm newer to this conversation and certainly to the county manager and team. So to kick off the conversation, knowing what some of the conversation's been with elected officials, but knowing what you just heard about training, shared services, how we're looking at station locations, SOPs, everything, I don't know where you want the next steps to be. And so we put up a question on here about, is there more inquiry we can do if we're, so is there some way to refine the question or the direction for both county and city staff? Meaning, do you want us to focus more on the training model? Do you want us to bring back a vision for the optimized services? Do you want to talk about response standards, optimized deployment? I'm not sure what the ultimate goal is for what we're trying to achieve. And if I'm correct, I think the manager can speak too about, is there some county effort going on with the municipalities as well? And so how do we balance out multiple initiatives going on in the fire service? But my understanding is that training was the important issue. We've got some things lined up for that. So do we feel like, hey, we checked that box, that continue on? I know it's another facility. I just want to make sure we have some clarity going forward. And I don't know if these are the right questions, but I just make sure we have some clarity.
And I think we've discussed this publicly back and forth quite a bit. And what I've heard is we're looking for opportunities that make sense, low hanging fruit, looking at the model, what smaller pieces work rather than the full up consolidation maybe. But I'm almost looking at, do we need to have a third party come in here that's objectively and observe the data and maybe a consultant or something to kind of report back to us? Tom, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, just to follow with what the city manager said, if you look at the county and you look at the 20 cities within the county, we are an urbanizing county. I mean, it's different than it was 25 and 30 years ago. Public safety, starting at fire and to some degree police and sheriff. I think we're looking for ways to be efficient and optimize and to work together. And I think that's where the conversation starts. So to what Mr. Marstall said, the county currently is in dialogue with some of the volunteer departments that ring the city of Wichita. And we're talking about ways to be efficient and to work better together and to give the cities a chance to ramp up or to join the district, basically. The standards in fire are changing. The expectations of the public of how fire responds to their houses and the pressure on the fire service is different than it was 20 years ago. So as we move through all these changes, the question falls to the elected officials. What can we do better and how can we work together better? Everything from functional consolidation and management, and the chiefs have already done tremendous work on this in the last 5 years, for example. Is there more? And what do we do in the future? Up to, and every fire professional I talk to, they understand in a county like Sedgwick that ultimately there has to be a regional fire response. Question of timing and when. As the cities grow bigger and the unincorporated county gets smaller and smaller, at some point, and how we're structured different from counties. We have a large city, and then we have 18 surrounding cities that are smaller. The question is, how can we work together better and provide the best service? Because as the chiefs have already said, they don't care what color the truck is when it shows up, as long as it's got water and professionals on it. So those are the discussions we have. And I think that what we want to hear from the elected officials today from is way forward. What is the expectation of staff? What's the expectation for Dennis and I as we have this conversation? What are the expectations for the chiefs as we move through this discussion? And what are your goals and expectations? So,
well, I'm happy to jump in feet first. I think that by and large, I think it's important to acknowledge all the work that has been done as you run through the history. I think that's important for the electeds. I think it's important for the community to understand that we're in a much better place today than what we were even 10 or 15 years ago. I think everybody can acknowledge that, from fire command staff to electeds, the community. So thank you for the work you've done. It's been a partnership that I think our community is safer because of some of the work that you've been doing. So thank you for that. I really appreciate your leadership. I think we all know that the cost of government is increasing. The cost of public safety inputs is also increasing. And when I look at that heat map, it's quite evident where population and new housing and new business and some of that growth is happening is going to require more pressing responses from both Sedgwick County Fire and Wichita Fire. There are going to be more calls, not less. Am I safe to say that? We currently co-respond on 7,000 calls a year. Is that a correct number? So I'm not great at math. I'm a mattress salesman. So 15 to 20 times a day, there's a scene to where you have a Sedgwick County Fire truck and a Wichita Fire truck. Am I correct in saying that?
In 2025, I believe it was right around 6,000.
So 15, 18 times a day, taxpayers are paying the Sedgwick County Fire Department and the Wichita Fire Department to show up on scene. And I'm not saying that's the best that is the safest response. And that is what they deserve. They deserve to have outputs that are showing up on time as quick as they can. But There are times in the city of Wichita, as we see, that the Sedgwick County Fire Department's the first on scene, and there's times out in the unincorporated parts of the county or some of our partner cities, there's 13 of them, the Wichita Fire is the first on scene. So to Tom's point, we are moving in a direction of a regional fire approach, and we're already doing regional fire activities. We're doing these things. And all I've continued to say is I'm not someone who thinks we're going to flip a switch and consolidate fire departments tomorrow. I think we've done a lot of work to get us into more shared services to where our community is safer. But Chief, to the point that you said earlier, many times we're so reactive after a bad event, and I'm looking at where all the growth is going to happen, and I want us to be a lot more preventative in some of these things. So a question, and Wichita has the Labrum technology and software. As you run reports for Labrum, as you're starting to plan out future fire stations that taxpayers will be investing into, whether we have bond capacity or not, does the Labrum study take into account current Sedgwick County fire locations in our aid agreements as you're reporting back to city council members so they're in the loop of these discussions?
Yes, it does. If we put it in there and we ask for the information, yes, it does. And I will say this is the first year when I talk about that we've been able to get data. Chief and I've worked really hard to make sure our data matches exactly. And because that was always a crutch or it's always been a hurdle that him and I've had tried to get across. He'd bring me one data, I bring him one data, and it didn't match. This is the first year that we've got it where we agree on all the filters and we agree on.
Excellent news. Thank you for that. My point is really, really simple. Is we have two factors that I think as electeds we have to consider. The first is the safety factor to make sure we get a red truck on scene as quick as we can. But we also have a cost factor. Because the cost of government is increasing to our citizens because public safety inputs is increasing. And I just think that our constituents deserve the conversation and that we're not so proud to believe that we've got the perfect system. That we should look nationally and say, are there other models in other places that are working well that we can glean from that? And I think as 70% of your calls are medical calls, we should have that conversation. It's inclusive of EMS as well. Is how do fire and EMS conversations work together? So I don't want to be so proud to think that we've got the perfect system. Our system is better. It's improving. People are safer, but these costs are going up and they will continue to rise as we become more of an urbanized county with more public safety inputs coming into our system. I think that we in our community and our citizens deserve a more sincere conversation about what could be, not tomorrow, but 5 years, 10 years out, so that we can actually have a trajectory that we're moving towards in these things. The cost of government's not going to continue to go down. It's not. I want to be preventative in some of these conversations. I just think that there's an opportunity to look around the country to see what other communities are doing if we can glean from some of that work. And I think it's time to modernize. We've done a hell of a job the last few years. But there are more modernization opportunities that we could be looking at. And I'm really sincerely hoping that we can dig into this on a deeper level.
Can I go to slide number 48, please? I think on our handout, it says 48, but it's the station locations map. So the city of Wichita actually is obviously moving forward with station number 23. That would be the new station in Southwest Wichita. And I currently see a gap, a major gap, not only in Wichita, but even in Sedgwick County. So my question really is, I appreciate a lot of the conversations between Wichita Fire and Sedgwick County Fire. I can see that the leadership is working together, collaborating, communicating. But the community, again, does not see the difference between Wichita and Sedgwick County. When it comes to a response, they want whatever first responder is available at that moment in time in their crisis. So with Station 23 still in the design phase, what are conversations regarding even county being part of that? I know that I have visited a station that is co-located by both city and county. So it's not a direct question right now, but it really does go into the question that the managers are asking the council and the commission. We're two separate governing bodies, but we serve a lot of the same residents. And so residents are asking us to be more efficient and find ways to not just prioritize, but really optimize our services. And so I am interested in more of that regional conversation to better serve residents. Serving our residents is my number one concern. So what what would be those next steps that would need to happen between city manager and county manager in order for us to have that next conversation about true regional conversations about fire.
Thanks. Thank you. I want to echo everything that's the recent work that you've all done the last couple of years has been the fire area. I've got tremendous respect for the both of you, as you know. So I feel way better than I did a few years ago about our fire community in general. But following up with that, I think it'd be almost really healthy if we did have a third party, that if we asked the managers to find a third party to just what would be the cost of a third party independent, because there'll be a little biases, I think, on both sides on if we tried to do it internally. I think if we had a third party, at least we knew what the cost was for a third party to come in and just evaluate, and maybe they report back, hey, 10 years ago, you were this way, but now you are light years ahead. And I think your trajectory is right to what you're doing. And that would be great to hear. Or they say, or you need to also look at this area, that area that we're not even aware of as electeds. So I would be in favor of sharing a cost of a third party review. I don't even know how long it'd take, 90 days, a year. I don't even know, but they would have access to the finances on both sides. I think the counties is probably a little easier, maybe cleaner because it's a separate mill levy, things like that. But those are kind of things that I would be supportive of. Kind of echoes what the chairman has said, and you, Mayor, as well, as far as just putting it in words, saying I think a review would be healthy. I'd love to have a 5-star review come back and say you guys are right on target. Keep doing what you're doing, and that would be great.
I want to echo both comments. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Meitzner. Mayor, I appreciate your comments. That Station 23 is something I started pushing for since 2013, and it's taken this long. Wichita hasn't built a fire station since 2009. We're way behind the curve. So I think this is the time, as the county grows, to look at what's going to best suit the capacity and growth of Sedgwick County. Baby said it. Cost of government's not going to go down. It may not be cost savings, but if we can contain some of the cost in the future, I think that's going to be.
If I could just supplement that, the conversation about what taxpayer bears the burden of responsibility for all these calls that are cross calls. Should the Wichita taxpayer build all these fire stations knowing they're going to be coming into the fire district? I mean, we're doing it 7,000 times a year. Should the Wichita taxpayer be solely responsible for your CIP for fire to build stations, knowing that we're trying to get a more regional response and we'll be working more closely aligned together anyhow? That's a broader, bigger conversation, but it's the burden of tax responsibility. And if we can glean from other places, we have people that are fire experts. We have people from other markets that have come from other markets and seen other things. If there are other examples out there that we need to be aware of that I am not aware of, then I would like to know. But should the Wichita taxpayer be the sole influencer and the burden of responsibility to build out all the fire stations, knowing how codependable we are on each other? I just 70% of my taxpayers, of my constituents, live in the city of Wichita. I just have a hard time justifying that conversation to 75,000 people, saying that you should be solely responsible. And I understand fire, and we're going to work together, and that's safety. That's a safety impact of it. There might be a better way. And I just think I think our citizens deserve the conversation.
I want to add to both Commissioner Beatty and Commissioner Meitzner. I appreciate your comments, and my thoughts were definitely there as well, Commissioner Meitzner. To answer the question, in the sake of transparency, I'm very supportive of looking into this. I do think, as we think about the Wichita taxpayers for my district, which overlaps with both you, Commissioner Meitzner, and you, Commissioner Beatty, it's about prioritization of where we need to be focused right now. And so when we speak about functional consolidation, fire is an option for that, but also homelessness and housing is an option. And if we're talking about a cost, city manager, to doing a study, I would like to know what that cost is and work collaboratively with our neighbors to understand what exactly we are looking at in that study. And then again, I know that I don't represent or these folks are not a part of my constituency base, but I am concerned about the impact it might have on smaller communities. And I know that when we think holistically of how to serve our region, we have to include them in that conversation. And that's something I think all of us, not just the county, has to consider as well with this functional or shared consolidation. So again, to the mayor's point, I would say I'm not so certain that this would be the first priority to look at for shared services. And so I would just assess our taxpayers in Wichita. Where would they like to see the county and the city working collaboratively first? But I do believe that fire is 100% worthy of the conversation for functional consolidation or shared services.
Thank you. I feel like there's a lot of political pressure to support this phrase consolidation. And I think that has to be balanced with the idea that there's more efficiency to be gained for the taxpayers. If you can get better services for less cost to the taxpayer, that is always a good thing for us to explore and to investigate. And I think that ought to be our motivation. I come at this not with condemnation, saying we have a broken system. Please don't think that, because I think Wichita Fire and Sedgwick County Fire are both doing a really good job. There may be opportunities we've not realized yet, and I think we ought to try to find those. But I don't look at this like there's a problem to be fixed. We're looking for opportunities to make things better. Understand, though, this is primarily a service organization. If you're going to find efficiencies, it probably is going to come with downsizing some staff somewhere, and the people don't really support that. And I'm not sure I would support that. So understand that if you're going to downsize the organization, if we somehow partner up in some way, and the savings is going to come from reductions in salary primarily, not necessarily reductions in fire trucks or reductions in fire stations. It's going to come in reductions in salary. So I think that we got to be careful with how we do that. I also would point out, go to the next slide, please. You'll see that the combination of all those purple dots to the right side of the map there are primarily, I think, because Station 6 and Station 38 are very close to, in fact, they're the same building, if I'm saying that right. What we see right there is an effect of city and county sharing the same building, and we have different service areas we are supposed to respond to. But in reality, we respond into the city, and the city responds into the county. That's what you see there. If you really want to have this conversation about Station 23, let's solve Station 6 and 38 first. That, in my opinion, taxpayers don't like that one, because we actually have two fire stations in the same building. And you might say, well, we're partnered up, we're doing a good job. And reality is it's probably not the right configuration for our taxpayers. I think we could do maybe a better job of solving that one first. If we can't solve that one, then I think we're going to have trouble going forward. I would also say this is not a new conversation. When I first became a county commissioner, I heard about it 10 years earlier. There were studies on my shelf. I still have them on my shelf. We continue to rehash the same conversation over and over and over again, because people assume there's efficiency by joining these together. And again, I'll come at this, say there may be opportunities, but I don't know that wholesale consolidation actually is what we all want. Bigger government's not necessarily better government. We're very good at providing services out in the county, and the city is really good at providing services in the city. And we should work together. I think we should train together, and we should have more partners. I would like to see Derby and Mulvane and other agencies, partner up with us as well. It's not just Wichita and Sedgwick County. We tax the people of Sedgwick County, but there's people out in the county that receive services. Again, I know the fire district is its own taxing unit, but we, as a Sedgwick County government, we have constituents that are providing Sedgwick County taxpayer dollars to the county, and I think it's upon us basically to be open to inviting our other partners out in the county as well to participate in whatever we come up with. I just want to say we need to right size the organization, whatever that is. There is a right size. I don't know that it's any less what we have today. It may be more, and there may be pockets where we need more people in certain places. But I don't know that means that we're going to become more efficient if we simply lock arms and say we do this together. It sounds really good, but I don't know that it's necessarily better governance. I think we need to look at it with an open eye, explore it, investigate it. But please don't jump to the conclusion that the consolidation, whatever that looks like, is always going to be better than what we have today. We have a good system today, and we should be proud of what we have. And we should look at this with like, let the data lead us where we go, but don't just assume it's better because we make change. Thanks.
I would say that more efficient government is not necessarily bigger government. So I think we're looking at more efficient government. And that's why I would support a study. I go back to the Lou Holt saying that when all is said and done, a lot more is said than done. I think that embodies us right here. I think we need to go ahead and move forward on this. And I agree with Councilmember Shepherd. We need to talk about homelessness and stuff too, but that's not a reason not to do this. So I think we should go ahead and commission a study, get heads together and commission a study, see where we can be more efficient.
If I may, I think that everyone's kind of saying the same thing. Consolidation is kind of the buzzword, but I think a regional model is the future. And so maybe with this outside study that can be done, it's more of, okay, here's where we're at today, where it's pretty good. You know, there's improvements, but what does the next 5 years look like for a regional approach? What are some maybe phased steps that we can regionalize and work together more? That is shared services, and it is efficiency. Understanding that it doesn't mean that government maybe gets bigger or smaller. It just gets better and more efficient. But it's also looking into the future. So we're not rehashing the same conversation for 10 or 20 years. We actually are just planning for the future, not today's changes, but what's 5 years, what's 5 more years. So I think key word here is regional. From my perspective, but I think I'm hearing it from the elected so far. Thank you.
A couple of just quick questions here, I guess. Would this just be a Wichita Sedgwick County study? Would we be including some of the other municipalities around Hayesville, Derby, and whatnot? I am curious about that and how that all works into this. And then the actual savings, I'm not sure, aside from maybe eliminating some white shirt positions, that there would be many actual savings with it. Also, it sounds like staff's had a lot of back and forth over the past couple of years about this. So I would be curious to see kind of what we can do in the meantime. To the mayor's point about some of the fire stations we do have coming down the pipeline, about doing shared services, making sure that they are put in a strategic location to be able to cover more. So I would be interested in seeing some of that as well. I mean, it's something we can take a look at, but at the same time, we just have to tread lightly. Full consolidation, questions that arises from that. Does that mean county employees are going to get paid Wichita firefighter wages? County employees will get the benefits that we provide. Are they going to be unionized? There's a lot of questions that come with full consolidation. So just a couple of thoughts that I'm putting out there right now.
I agree, Commissioner Howell. In your district, you've got the Air Force, you've got Derby, you've got Sedgwick County Fire.
And Mulvane.
Yeah, Mulvane.
And Bowen.
Yep.
Again, you want to go crazy here. This is just throw this out there as just something to chew on. Okay. I actually think that the fire district ought to be a separate governing board. Our fire district they're governed by the county commission, and 4 of us today don't even live in the district. There's an issue of taxation without representation. In the state legislature is actually trying to address that with some legislation this year, which it didn't get to the end, but it is a topic that's not just here. If you want to go crazy, would Wichita be willing to hand over the keys to their fire? We have countywide EMS, we have countywide 911, we could have countywide fire, with the exception of a few sovereign cities that don't want to participate, like Derby probably wouldn't. I guess they probably wouldn't do it. Is there a discussion of saying have a fire district with an elected fire board that governs the fire district, which includes all of Wichita and all of Sedgwick County, in terms of our fire district we have today? Imagine a new governing body. That's not us. It's not what we have today. It's not really Wichita. It's combined, consolidated, and governed by an elected fire board. To me, that is a vision for consolidation that ought to be explored. Thank you.
If I could, Chairman, I really appreciate your thoughts, Jim, but Mike, I appreciate the thought there. And again, I have over 4 years of having this conversation and looking at this and meeting with a lot of people. I'm not sure there's cost savings. I really don't. This pay equity has to come into this, and no one's getting a pay cut. That's not why you do things like this, right? That's not how that works. Become more efficient. But for me, what this has become is
which taxpayer is bearing the burden of growth and scaling the need? And right now, based on what I'm going to see here, it's the Wichita taxpayer that's paying the burden. They're going to pay the burden, and then we're all going to co-respond into the county and other places. And I just think there's a conversation that has to happen of which taxpayer is paying the burden to scale a regional approach. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So I think that's a conversation. And I am the one commissioner that lives in the fire district, pays fire district taxes. And I'm very grateful that that black line move, as I live north of Mays, and that if something was to happen at my home or on my property and 33s are out serving a call somewhere else, a volunteer department somewhere else, that Wichita and 21s will be there. So that regional approach, we're safer because of it, but which taxpayer is going to bear that burden?
I'll just chime in. I'm interested if there's a study that's done. I do think it's a very valid question of, is it just city and county, or what about the other municipalities within the county? I think that's very important. I just want to highlight too, we do a community survey every year, and our fire service is the #1 issue that residents feel is going well and is high satisfaction rate. So it's highly important and they're highly satisfied. 83% of Wichitans who take our community survey think that it's the highest and most important service that we offer. So it shows that the message in the community that I hear, I've been in council now for 7+ years, and I've never heard one complaint about our fire service, not one. And I've heard probably about every other department within the city of Wichita. So, I'm open to it, but I just want to go in again with the caveat that I think we're providing exceptional service, and I think our residents think we're providing exceptional service.
Questions, comments?
I just have one additional comment to kind of wrap even the very first conversation we had in Banc today, which was about air service. So I would be interested if this does go forward with a study. I also would like to see how technology can be part of this conversation. I know that with the Wichita Police Department, drones as first responders was something we talked about at last week's workshop. And the vision for drones as first responders is also to provide services to fire and to public works. And among the services for fire is their infrared technology. In the middle of the night, they can spot where the hot spot is with this, again, drone. And so I would be interested not just in that conversation, but adding the component of how do you add technology into fire service.
Managers, I'm looking at you guys. We wouldn't necessarily have to wait for another quarterly en banc. This is something we could bring up individually on our agendas and see if we could kind of reach some kind of agreement to get this started.
I'm sure the county manager and I can come up with a scope for you for what a study would be. I do want a little bit more clarification. I do think it would be helpful as to how you think about EMS and fire. So I do think, knowing that our firefighters have the EMT designation, how do we respond to efficiency? Do we have to respond with an ambulance or a full engine or a ladder truck? Are there other ways to respond? So I'll talk with the county manager and see if there's some way we can incorporate a little bit of the medical, because you're right, the medical calls are the growing calls. When you think about the fire response rate, a lot of it is medical related. So the manager and I can certainly work on scope.
I have 4 things written down. I think the council and commission are interested in looking at other models around the country. I think that they're concerned about station location and being efficient. There's some interest in a third party. Dennis Knight, or city manager, and I can look into that. And then the technology component, those are all issues. I think we can work together and get you a report back. We need to meet together again, but we can feed information back to the council and commission on how that's progressing.
Okay. All right.
I'm just going to add one more thing, since everyone has this sheet that was provided by both chiefs, just to highlight something that I think gives it numbers for people to understand. In 2024, there were 52,986 total incidents that the fire department responded to. And of those, 691 were actual structural fires. And of that 52,986, 31,000 were medical calls. So that question that you just posed regarding EMS is very valid to this conversation. And I think that, again, when we talk about these these topics, I appreciate when our chiefs are able to provide data, because that really does shape the conversation. When people understand what are those calls and what our current firefighters are dealing with, not just structural fires, but a large majority medical calls, it does provide that conversation. How do we better serve now and in the future?
2.2% of calls are to an actual structure. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Comments? If not, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please follow.
Commissioner Meitzner, Commissioner Beatty,
Aye.
Commissioner Howell,
Aye.
Commissioner Wise,
Aye.
Chairman Bluebow.
Aye. And the motion passes 5-0. Real quickly, I'd like to hit the next agenda items with it, please.
Item D, West Kellogg Road Project.
Gentlemen, thank you for your patience this morning. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the time, commissioners and council members. Gary Jansen, Director of Public Works and Utilities for the city. I'm going to kick this off really quick and give you an abbreviated version of what I was going to talk about holistically related to Kellogg. Then I'm going to turn over to Paul Gunzelman. So I think, as you all know, we've been working on freeway improvements to Kellogg since 1990. The city has invested over $700 million in local sales tax to improve Kellogg to a 6-lane freeway, access controlled freeway, almost 17 miles now. And Paul will talk about some of that. Current project that's under construction is on East Kellogg, starting at K96, going east, actually to the county line. And I'll use that as an example. I think is a great testament to collaboration between multiple communities. City of Wichita, Sedgwick County, Butler County, and Andover are all contributing to that project. In more recent years, we've been successful with federal funding being awarded to these projects, especially starting at Webb and going east. But we think now is time to go west. 7 or 8 years ago, improvements were made at Kellogg and I-235. Huge investment, great improvement there. That was federal funds through KDOT and Sedgwick County commitment. That was a wonderful project, one of the best things we've done along Kellogg in a long time. The last freeway expansion work that was done going west out to 111th Street West was about 2005. At that time, we continued design work to go further west for the 119th, 135th Street interchanges. Things kind of changed with the economic downturn, 2008, 2009. Priorities changed, growth patterns changed. But things have really picked back up. We're seeing new growth in western Wichita and Sedgwick County. Goddard's doing a lot of great things. It's really driving traffic counts up. We were able to capture some corridor management funds during a period of time there. We built some of the frontage roads you see out west of 119th Street. What that did is it put us in a position to further design. We've got design work almost 75% complete. For those next few miles of freeway improvements. That's a big deal for us to be near shovel ready. We've had some conversations over the years with KDOT and Federal Highway about potential federal funds because of being shovel ready. KDOT management secretary has reached out to the city, has reached out through Councilmember Tuttle numerous times to talk about making this West Kellogg more of a priority now. They think that we might have an opportunity at federal funds, federal grant funds, even outside of what we normally see through WAMPO. So that's going to be our focus now. We're ready to move forward. We've talked through Jim Davenport and our council when they were recently in Washington about some potential congressionally directed funds to finish that design so that we can be in a better place to be shovel ready. With that, Paul's going to walk you through some history and have him jump to West Kellogg. One last thing I'll say real quick. We've all spent time talking about the Northwest Bypass. Regardless of what happens and when with that, our belief is that we've got to make these improvements to West Kellogg regardless. You really can't have one without the other. So I think it's a really good opportunity and time now to move forward with where we've been. Again, I'd say I think a partnership between the city and the county and Goddard hopefully can do the same thing that was done out east with the city and county, Butler County and Andover. That's the last thing I'll say. I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Gary. Gary had touched on a few of the slides that I'm going to cover. So again, part of the history dating back to 1979 when Kellogg was improved at I-135.
east over to Hillside, Mid-Continent, Eisenhower Parkway. In early 1980, we have applied for a RAISE grant for the past 3 years to do a study down towards the airport, as well as this interchange. We have not been successful on the RAISE grant. However, we did get a earmark from Senator Moran had gotten for us. So once we get that through the tip and everything in agreement with KDOT, we'll get some type of design or study started on that interchange. Floodway to West Street, 1983 and 84, with recent improvements, as Gary mentioned, I think in 2016, the I-235 Kellogg interchange, downtown flyover in the early 1990s. That's when I started with the city of Wichita, so that was a pretty impressive project, not having to stop down at Main Market Broadway in Topeka. At the same time, Kellogg Seneca Meridian was under construction, moved back out west, Kellogg and Dugan, as well as a project at Kellogg and Oliver in mid-90s. West Kellogg that Gary mentioned, 2002, 2004, Kellogg and Mays, Kellogg and Tyler. And then we moved back east, Kellogg and Woodlawn, Rock Road and Armour, Webb Road that Gary mentioned, as well as east Kellogg, Greenwich, and the Turnpike area. Again, he mentioned the current project that KDOT is currently working on that improves Kellogg from K96 east through the county line, 159th Street, with interchange improvements or ramp improvements at K96, interchange at 143rd, as well as an interchange at 159th. So we believe that the West Kellogg from 111th Street west to 151st Street is the next phase. We have completed approximately 75% of the plans for design. As Gary mentioned, using KDOT corridor management funds, and I'll have some slides where the frontage roads have been constructed. We have $4 million programmed in the Wichita CIP to complete design in 2026, or begin completion of design in 2026. And during the legislative session here recently, Representative Estes reached out about applying for an earmark, so we did submit that for design. We've been working with PEC. It's going to take approximately 30 months to complete the design to get it shovel ready. And the estimated cost for their freeway improvements is $200 million based on East Kellogg improvements. Current traffic volumes, 37,000 vehicles per day near 135th Street with 2,300 trucks. This is based on the KDOT flow map in 2024. And again, the next phase, showing that next phase, project limits from 111th Street to a half mile west of 135th Street. And as Gary mentioned, we have been working on this. This is a concept from 2011 where it shows renderings of what West Kellogg could look like at 135th Street. And zooming in on the proposed interchanges at 119th Street, well, Kellogg would go over 119th Street. The green lines or roadways represent the frontage roads that have been completed. The blue represents frontage roads that need to be constructed, especially there in front of or adjacent to Rest Haven Cemetery. And the orange, of course, is the proposed flyover, 6-lane freeway. 135th Street, similarly, green lines are the frontage roads that have been completed. Blue, what still needs to be constructed with the project, and the freeway shown in orange. I'm going to turn it over to Lynn so he can talk a little bit about ARC 95 and how the South Area Transportation Study that WAMPO completed in 2007.
Before we go that direction, do you mind, because this portion of West Kellogg is not in rural Sedgwick County. You know, Goddard abuts to the city of Wichita, 167th. We have George Lieb, the mayor of Goddard here. If you don't mind, can I pull him up here real quick so we can kind of get some input from it? Mind share this a little bit?
Probably just stand up and do it there with my big boy voice. Well,
We want the folks on YouTube and on Facebook to be able to hear the comments.
First of all, I'd like to say that I think anybody that lives in western Sedgwick County will support this project. I know my days of working downtown, if I left at 6 a.m, I could get downtown in 14 minutes. But in the evening, if I left at 4:30, it's going to take 30 minutes. I think that it's a long time coming. The major hurdle is getting past Goddard, I think. Once you get to Garden Plain, bypasses are already there. I know I was involved in discussions in 1998 when there was a meeting about whether Kellogg should bypass Goddard. Maybe the wrong decision was made at that point, but it creates this is an easy step, trying to figure out whether we're going to and how we're going to go through our downtown area, basically, which is developing. Our major core of commercial business is going to develop right around 54 Highway with the things we've got going on with the Goddard Galleria, other construction, commercial things that have developed here just in the last couple of years. One other comment, I know that we were really involved in trying to promote the Northwest Expressway project, but the reason behind that wasn't to bypass or put that ahead of this project. We were received and we're in a meeting 2 years ago where KDOT was considering defunding that project. And with all the money that's been set aside for that, we thought it was really important that project, because they said nobody cares. So we made an attempt to raise the visibility of that project to let KDOT know that there are people on the west side that do care about that project as well. So important project to our community, that overlay district. And if we can find a way, maybe possibly if we go around, there's some decisions that need to be made sooner than later. But I think everyone in the west part of the county is going to be happy to see that project get underway in spite of the delays that it takes to get it built. So those are my just brief comments, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add on to what Mayor said, and thank you for your comments. When Secretary Reed KDOT reached out to me and asked, where we were with this project and, thoughts from the community, the one thing that he always says that I really appreciate that Mayor emphasized is Secretary Reed always says, don't bring me a project, bring me a problem. And I think that Mayor really demonstrated that there's a problem. It's the same reason that we're doing the expansion on East Kellogg. It's quality of life. People are sitting there when they could be getting home, reading to their children, making dinner, being with friends, getting to work, whatever it may be. And then the safety component. So those two things are the problem that he's concerned about. So I think we've done a great job, and kudos to the city engineering team, to the county engineering team, to be able to demonstrate to KDOT the problem that this is elevated to the point it is. And I just want to say kudos to my colleagues too, when we went to DC a few weeks ago, for advocating for this project and the great response that we received from Senator Moran and Congressman Estes.
Okay, I looked, yes, it's still good morning. So I will answer 2 quick questions for you. Number 1, yes, we're almost done. And number 2, why are we talking about ARC 95 with West Kellogg? The truth is ARC 95, West Kellogg, and the Northwest Expressway are all intertwined. Most people look at ARC 95 and they just think about the grade separated crossing with K-15, the railroad, and the Ark River. And that is a big portion of ARC 95, but ARC 95 is really a portion of the South Area Transportation Study route, what we call SATS. So the SATS looked at a loop way back in 2008 and wanted to look at something that would easily connect east and west areas of Wichita down on the south side, like we had up with K-96 on the north side. We have, it also is going to connect cities like Derby, Mulvane, Clearwater, Hayesville. The proposed connection they came up with is actually an existing corridor using Greenwich Road, 95th Street South, and back then 119th West. I think it's important to note that 119th West made a lot of sense for connection back in 2007, 2008. I think 135th right now makes a better argument for a connection. And by the time we actually probably go with construction and moving forward, it's probably going to be 167th, just due to the development crawl that's going on along west along Kellogg. We've already talked a little bit about Northwest Expressway. We're all familiar with it. This project obviously ties in with West Kellogg, and as noted, it's also going to tie in with the South route. I think trying to rush through the notes we had. If the proposed route, if you look at it a little closer here, it's that same image. There is still a little bit of a gap, mile and a half gap between what's going to be proposed for Northwest Expressway and the West Kellogg improvements. Yes, that is something that needs to be taken care of. I think a 6-lane corridor throughout is important, but it doesn't mean that we can't move forward with other projects. Where we're getting at with this was the Northwest Expressway is intended to pull truck and commuter traffic off of Kellogg, just as the SATS route is also intended to pull some of that truck and commuter route off of Kellogg. So with these projects working together, it basically is trying to extend the service life of Kellogg as you go through town. You won't have as much truck and commuter traffic because they'll have ways to get north and south, whether you're going up a 135 or down into Derby. You have alternate routes that don't require you to go through Wichita to get to those destinations. So that's just an example of how these projects are kind of all working together. You know, we just need to be flexible and just work together really for this, you know, a long-term progress of making these projects come to fruition. And for that, yes, right before lunch, we are done. And if there are any questions, we stand ready to answer them.
Len, I appreciate everybody coming to present today. And I kind of look at it southwest part of Sedgwick County. There's quite a bit of land out there. The last major highway put in was 1920s K42. So that's 100 years old. If we're essentially looking at this connector, if we had a south connector, whether it's a Northwest Expressway, a south connector, I don't even know that we could get it done by 2050. And 235 was put in the 1950s. So I guess globally, I'd like to look at every 100 years, we could at least look at some major highways out west. So any other questions or comments? If not, I'll give the mic to Mayor Wu and close out the meeting. I will. I'll let you go ahead and make your comments.
Thank you again to Sedgwick County Commission and your Sedgwick County staff for hosting the first en banc of the year. Just as a reminder, the last time we all came together was October of 2025. So I appreciate that there is a rhythm to these en bancs. The purpose of these en bancs is really so that two separate elected bodies come together to get informed and also to provide feedback. And the way that these agendas are created, again, for background, is that the mayor and the vice mayor of the year and the chairman and the pro tem for the year come together once a month to start discussing further the topics from the en banc, but then start crafting the en banc agenda for the following meeting. So I can see that there's a lot of work to be done, and I am very much looking forward to the next en banc, which is June 30th. And so we will continue, chairman and pro tem, as well as vice mayor, working together on the next agenda. I know that Shanna with the city manager's office has an ongoing list of future topics. I have heard from many of you that you want to talk about homelessness and a regional approach to homelessness. And so I am going to definitely bring that up at the for the June 30th meeting. And again, I just want to say thank you for being hosts and continuing these conversations. this is how stuff gets done in our community, not just haphazardly, but rather intentionally. And so I'm very grateful for the staff with Wichita Police, Wichita Fire, as well as Wichita Airports, multiple agencies coming together and really talking about these major challenges and how we can move forward. So again, thank you all very much and look forward to seeing you all on June 30th.
Well, thank you everyone for your patience. Apologize, I ran a little bit over. Yeah, I'm sorry. Administratively, we still need to make a motion. I need to make a motion to receive and file the last agenda item.
Second.
Okay. A motion, a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner, Commissioner Beatty, Commissioner Howell,
Aye.
Commissioner Wise,
Aye.
Chairman Blubow.
Aye, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you for that. And look forward to our next en banc. If we discuss homelessness, I would ask that we discuss mental health from our side because it does feel like, this city takes care of the homelessness and we try to cover the mental health aspect. So look for opportunities there to work together, but really appreciate everybody's patience. I think this is a good meeting. It's very productive. Maybe had a little bit stronger agenda than what we did at the time, but I appreciate everybody's patience and hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye.